So, what's up, puppy? Come on. No, I have a feeling it's probably like we put nothing, no action to come. Because we didn't know motions and stuff. Oh, like
Because
motion
that's
to
really
adjourn, you mean?
Well, or even that there.
Well, we should have told you that or whatever.
So I'm guessing that's probably what that is.
Right.
Our,
Oh.
yes. No, take the credit card. The card got it for you. The card's from, not from Allison either.
I can't take this screen. I use it over now. This is good.
Oh.
I'll give it to you.
Katie. Kringle? I can't take it home because it's got eggs in it.
That way. Clean me at the end. It's gonna get. Oh, I'll bring it to.
I am the best Kringle maker.
But it's not.
Waiting
Oh.
for solid.
For what?
Okay.
It might.
I'm just hoping
Welcome
that-
to democracy.
You can switch over.
All right,
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, why
we could, let's do that.
Okay.
not?
If
I didn't expect it,
Sessions.
but yeah, that's a good idea.
Wait, sorry.
We could move spotlight up.
Yeah, but I said he could make comments.
That's fine. But then after that, we could do spotlight.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sure.
So he
Then
could
I just, somebody just motioned that.
Maybe he could ask us to show something.
Right.
Okay.
That's got it. Okay. Okay. I have a question right now. All right, we're gonna call the meeting to order. Can we get roll call?
Carla Pennington Cross.
That one.
Daniel Bailey are present, Andrew Franklin's excused. You may stand for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Perhaps a motion to move the district spotlight?
I move to move the district spotlight ahead of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, so there's an amendment to the motion to approve the agenda, which would approve the agenda with the district spotlight moved up to ahead of section 3. Any objections? The agenda is approved with that change. Which means we will move on to public comments. So if anybody here would like to speak on a non-agenda item, including the consent agenda.
We're looking at
please.
you, Rob.
I'd like to give other people a chance.
I didn't see anyone sign up, so.
Come up, press the button, is that the deal?
Yeah. If you'd like,
All
please.
right.
And if you guys can't hear us, we will press our buttons if you'd like. but-
Yeah.
Okay, Robert
So-
Cronwell, 7530 North Applewood Lane. Happy
Alright.
holidays, everybody.
Say it.
And on that note, I'm here for my annual airing of grievances, which Andy would get because he's a Festivus guy, but that's okay. But I just had 3 things I wanted to comment on. When I was looking through the agenda, I noticed that the November 6th meeting where you conducted a hearing on an official complaint and then the follow-up meeting on the 9th.
Mhm.
There's no actual action that happened. So the complaint, you had a hearing, you deliberated, and you never took action on the complaint according to this. So I don't know if it was sustained or found insufficient or whatever you use for denying it, but
So you're looking at 11. There was a decision formalized regarding a complaint, so that is in the 11:09 minutes. You see that?
was
Closed session. I think it's it might be in the wrong section. Maybe it should be back.
there
in the
doesn't seem to
open
have been a
session.
formal vote up or down on whether
So it
what the
says-
resolution was. So
Under D, closed session.
Mhm.
Formalize the decision regarding the official complaint and the motion carried. So the
okay.
board voted to formalize a decision regarding the complaint at that meeting.
And that was
What?
sustained, denied,
What do you mean sustained or denied?
I mean, when there's a hearing and a
What the
complaint,
decision
usually,
said?
yeah, there's usually an action, go with either you find that the complaint had merit and took some kind of action, or you found that it didn't and you took no action, kind of. I
Well,
mean,
that's contained in the actual decision that we made, which is available via
So the
public
board-
record request.
so the board took some action, but it's not real, okay, that's,
Well, I guess I'm just confused as if you think, is it required under law that we say what the decision was? Because
Yes.
if it's a matter of personnel,
In the
Then we-
minutes, it's required in the minutes.
well, did the board make a decision?
the board formalized a decision
Right.
regarding the complaint. And the motion carried to formalize the decision. I'm not sure what you're looking for.
Whether it was to uphold the complaint or deny the
There
complaint?
might have been multiple components to the
Then
complaint. and
It
some of
it
which
should be in
were-
it's the action the board took, and there's no record of the actual results, really. I mean, you just said, we
Okay.
had a hearing, we did something, we took some kind of undisclosed action afterwards. It doesn't really say what the board did, what
Right.
decision it came
I
to.
guess I could talk to our lawyers to see if that's something we need to include in the minutes, because. My thinking would be the decision itself lists all that out. That is available via a public records request. So it is there and it says we made the decision. So I'll definitely look into that and I'm definitely happy to follow up with you.
The
and
other thing,
modify
there
the
were,
minutes.
there were a couple things in the handbook. The first one's where it's involves district technology, and it states that
Could you, we have it, we'll pull it up so you can.
Wait, we talked about this during the consent agenda though?
We won't talk
if you
about
pull it
once
out.
We pull it out.
Wait,
Well,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what I'm
Oh.
wondering is because this is now a discussion of an
I have it.
agenda item, so this is supposed to be for non-agenda items, so I feel like Rob should have to wait.
Yes.
And we can get to the agenda as amended, and if we wanted to, we could pull that.
Yeah, if we
when
don't
we
pull
get-
it, he can't make a comment.
you can't make the comment on the consent agenda?
Yeah. I
it's
was trying
confusing.
to-
That's why I asked beforehand,
Yeah, I said
because
he could
it's
make it
not
myself.
technically one of your
Okay.
action
Okay.
items.
Yeah,
It
I
falls
just told him he
outside
could
of
make the
that.
comment.
That's fine.
Okay, so just give it to us and.
Okay.
We won't comment back. but
So
we'll
it
just-
says that at the first incident of loss or damage, the district covers the cost for repairs or replacement. Second incident, the employee is responsible 50%, and 3rd%, the employee will be responsible for the full cost of repairs or replacement. And then it goes on to say, any unpaid costs due to the district as a result of damage to technology may be collected through withholding of compensation. That would violate state statute unless you got the written authorization of the employee to make that deduction. And I brought the little,
Wouldn't that be them signing the handbook?
no, it has to happen after the incident that caused the damage or loss and before the deduction is taken. You can't pre-authorize it.
Okay.
So I just want the district to be aware, the policy is actually okay as long as you get the written authorization. If you
Okay.
don't, they can sue you for twice the amount of the amount deducted for
Okay.
for the damages.
Do you have the statutory citation?
Sure.
that you're
I'll give a handout. This is what the state puts out on it.
Okay.
And then the other one was the personnel records.
Mhm.
You have some language in here. All material gathered prior to employment by the school board shall be considered privileged information. The school board shall maintain the right to remove said information prior to allowing the employee to access the file to the extent allowed by law. Well, the law only allows it for like letters of recommendation. I mean, if you did a pre-employment drug screen or a background check or even the employment application, that's all stuff that's collected before the hiring, but it's part of the hiring decision.
Mhm.
That has to be released as part of a personnel records request. So I just, if you actually did it that way, again, you'd be in violation. I don't know if that's what the intent is, but
Wouldn't that be covered if it says to the extent allowed by law?
well, it also says you automatically consider it all privileged, so it would seem like it exceeds what the statute allows, because the statute's got one exception in it, and it's only for letters of recommendation that would cover most of that material.
So we had discussed having our lawyers review the handbook.
Mhm.
And one thing we could just do is maybe not, I would suggest maybe like if we wanna. We can pull it out and make those changes now, but I feel like we'd have, most of us would probably wanna research or set. Or just make
And I brought the
sure-
flyer on the other one too.
Yes, great. So we can also just agree to have our lawyers comb through and make sure that everything is in compliance and make any other additional tweaks that may be brought in time for us if we need.
Which provision was he referring to?
It's employment.
Personnel records and what is the other one?
Section 7,
And
Section seven.
technology.
Okay.
Okay,
page
thank you for
37.
bringing that to our attention. Okay, awesome. Anybody else want to make a comment? On anything non-agenda related? All right. Then moving on to the district spotlight.
So I just want to say thank you to everybody that's waiting, students, caregivers, staff members. I reached out to Mr. Kaufman and said that the district would really be interested in highlighting some of the amazing things that our students are doing in extracurricular activities. And he emailed out and he recruited and he got all of these people here tonight. So thank you so much. So I'm just gonna actually step back and hand it over to Gus and let him introduce the groups that he has with us tonight.
All right, so, thank you, by the way, Superintendent Weiss, I really appreciate you reaching out, being able to chance to come in here and do a little spotlight here before we head into winter break. I did print up, the Glen Hills clubs and activities, just so you can see, we have a pretty big variety, I think we have 14, 15 clubs, 14 clubs right now. Up and running along with all the athletics, and at Parkway, we have 3 clubs, gymnastics, roller skating, as well as drama club. Obviously, not everyone could be here, so I'm kind of here to represent all the clubs and activities, but also specifically cross country, because that's one of the sports that I've been here coaching for 22 years. So cross country runners, don't be shy, come on around. We also have Jen Clark here on behalf of Garden Club, and Miss Lingard here on behalf of Roller Skating Club and Gymnastics Club as well. That will get a chance to meet. So Molly, Livia, Joseph, Baruch, come on up. This is- well, Molly doesn't need a script. So introduce yourself. Let
I'm
them-
Joseph Truitt.
There we go. Take it away, buddy.
I'm a sport athlete at Glen Hills. I wrestle, cross country and track. My favorite part about running cross country was probably just how many people did it and the difference. Like we had so many 8th graders, so many 4th graders, and some guys were really into it and girls, but some of them weren't. You know, just did it for fun. Find your area.
Awesome. Thank you, Joseph.
I'm Olivia Nelson, most people call me Livy, but I've done cross country all years that I could. I think that my favorite part about cross country is probably the running. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I think that it's very fun and good thing to do. I'm Molly Steiner. I also did cross country for all 5 years that I could, and my favorite part was just progressively getting better through all the years. I'm Baruch Deniki, and I only did cross country for 7th and 8th grade, but it really helped me for like conditioning for like back, since I also do basketball, so it's like really helpful.
Yeah, I'm Nicholas Pennington Cross, and I did cross country for all the years that I could. I really enjoyed the physical activity, and then also I really liked the pizza and the racing. Yeah, I like the racing because like I feel like it was a very supportive people there.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys. Can I ask a question?
100%.
Here, I'll even turn on my mic.
Would any of you like to comment on Mr. Kaufman as a coach?
I didn't know that was gonna happen.
Feel okay about that.
It's a soft love.
Yeah,
Someone say
right.
something about Mr. Kaufman here.
He's very hardworking and he pushes those.
It's too easy. Just play games all the time.
Oh, that's all we do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like he cares about the kids.
That's
Very cool. I appreciate it. All right, so cross country, we're gonna get out of the way.
Treats, cookies,
Speakers. Yeah, I think you're gonna take a cookie if you want. And then Guardians Club, you're up.
So Garden Club and Green Team are here. Students wanted to talk about some of the projects that they've been working on. And then we do have a brief video. I do also have some handouts because there's so many fun pictures. And these are for you, but while they're going over that, I'm going to hand out the first round of handouts, which is a update on our first project. Take it away, guys.
We got the hydroponic system May 2023. Myself and Tammy helped put it together during our resource center. When we got the hydroponic system together, we started with water. We put in 34 valves. We then worked to germinate. When we finished putting water in, we got rock wool and put seeds and water into each tray. Once seeds sprouted, we took the squares that sprouted and put them into the hydroponic system. Each day, we would check the water levels, the pH levels, and the nutrients. After 6 weeks, we started to harvest the lettuce and bag it so that we could donate it to the food pantry.
Second project.
Second project was in the schoolyard. It all started by planting native plants in 2018. In June of 2022, the Green Schoolyard Plan went into action.
Community teachers and students all made structures in the green schoolyard, like the book nooks, garden beds, and the park walks. Eagle Scouts made the benches, then STEAM class of 2023 painted them. We also planted over 500 native plants.
During recess, kids can come up to the Green Schoolyard and learn about the native plants, wildlife, and how the Green Schoolyard is made. Garden Club and Green Team will be part of the group.
Chickens.
If we want, we can continue. They just have like another minute. So why don't you go ahead? We'll watch the video at the end. So if you want to talk about project 3.
Our third project this year has been supporting learning in STEAM.
Miss Miracle provided chick eggs for us. When they hatched, they were wet and slimy. Some students got to bring them home and take care of them. Students get to vote on the names for the chicks.
It was a ton of fun watching them get older.
We fed the chicks chick food and water. Most of the time, the chicks chirped and pooped.
It was a fun experience taking care of the chicks, watching them grow up. Now the chicks are at Miss Miracle's farm, having fun roaming around.
So one interjection, part of the reason we raised the chicks was for an 8th grade genetics lesson in STEAM class. So it was a partnership between Garden Club, Green Team, and STEAM. But they were the nannies, if you will. Go ahead, Josh.
She
has another pair.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
We love taking care of Cookie, Chip, Dale, Harry Styles, Taylor Jr., and Olivia, the chicks. And it was once in a lifetime of opportunity.
Recycling is our last time to discuss. Recently, we've been walking through classrooms seeing if they're recycling or not. Most classes haven't been recycling complete. So we would like to fix this problem by starting a recycling campaign.
We're putting signs up so students and staff know what's recyclable. We're also planning presentations to educate students during research time in the mornings. Also, we are planning to add these on the televisions in the cafeteria. We are planning on making videos for all morning announcements. And we'll continue to monitor how recycling is going. Thank you for listening and we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So we just have a really short video that Garden Club and Green Team made during lunch recess and after school for you.
People that come out here eat lunch here, come and eat some like tomatoes and carrots and chives.
That's what they all used to be.
Rats, this one and this one. They are both blue, they're both sets of rats that you have taken. Like that one. And by the students. This one I made. This is what I made. And then this is one my other friend made. This is a friend that no one knows. This is also.
Video mom.
I would love to give you this because it's a great place for students to learn things about animals that have to the past, like the eighth graders now. At least one of the eighth graders have, when they were at the fourth grade, they started this garden. And then now we get to walk away and then to high school. I'm feeling happy because they finished it. I feel like it's not fair, like as soon as they're gone, it gets stared down. Why I want to think of the school year is because I have loved being able to help in a wonderful ecosystem where tons of birds and animals can just enjoy and know that they are safe by they are because me and my friends spend a lot of time together and a lot of people have helped with it and worked on it and I think it's important that we all contribute to it and don't and either way.
So wonderful, that was our fabulous fifth graders that were in charge of this part of the presentation, and we did have some technical issues with, all the videos were taken properly, but when we transferred it into iMovie, that's where we got. So it totally was not, and it really, we couldn't figure it out, but that was, we did it, it was amazing.
It was great. It was fantastic.
All them in their groups.
All right, I'm not as cute as these guys, but.
Says who?
Probably steal
I don't
some of them,
know.
'cause they used to be a club, right? PE club, we just have a slideshow, that Ms. Weiss is gonna pull up. It's, you actually have to flip through it, because unfortunately I just made it right before I came here. Because we have PE club tonight, so I needed to get some photos, because Mr. Kaufman needs to work on giving me a little bit more notes.
There's some feedback.
But I'm also representing drama club. Last year we had a lot more clubs, but this year with the time change, we're trying to re-hype it up again. So there's two of us brave warriors starting out. So if you flip through the slides, I have some from each grade. Just showing some limbo games, red light, green lights. Second grade's coming up and they're making a train, posing, doing some tricks. And then third grade, I forgot to take photos on Monday, so I grabbed them during PE class. And then this is Erin Sharnick's drama club. She's putting on a presentation tomorrow at our school-wide morning meeting. If you guys want to hop in at 8 o'clock, you can attend and see it live. And then I had Jessica Steinbring, she's one of our new paras, and her son Kyle, who's a high school student at Nicolay, volunteering. Jessica was my assistant, and then Erin had Kamei Kim assisting as well. So the kids love it. We are very thankful that you support us having clubs, and we want to keep them going. It's just this year again, we found the new time a bit challenging to get people involved. So I once again piloted it and tried to help promote it, and I'm gonna keep trying to help promote it. But it's a lot of fun. Was any of you guys in PE club? Well, I think you were. We did roller skating club, gymnastics. You remember? It's been a few years for some time was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been going on for a while. But any questions at all?
I'm curious because I know the way it's like people are signing up and then it's a lottery to fill as many slots. So are you getting like a lot more interest in having to like resort to the lottery for
For the-
clubs?
Drama club did, cause she had a limit.
Right, like it was like, yeah,
PE club, cause I broke it down by grade, so she combined them all into one.
Right,
So it
okay.
was a max of 25.
okay, so
I
you're
broke
right,
it down by grade, anticipating I'd get way more,
okay,
and I had. No, I had like 20 to 25
okay.
each. sign
Okay.
up.
so it's good, okay.
But I feel like I'll be getting more, cause a lot of kids, when I do gymnastics in January, a lot of kids are like, wait, can I still sign up? And I was like,
Yeah,
I pulled in a few, but because of skating, I have to limit it a little bit more.
yeah,
Than gymnastics, I could pull in a few more.
okay, cool.
Yeah. Is that all? All right, thanks for
you so
having
much.
us.
Yeah, grab cookies. Is Mrs. Herkowski?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening.
We're gonna find a reason to get you at our next meeting and then the next.
You guys.
It's fun seeing you.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman.
No, those are from board, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Thank you, Mrs. Linger.
That's like what my son would say. He'd be like,
I got Mr. Herkowski was
like class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like last
But I was kind of, I was looking forward to it.
I was like,
I didn't know.
So it's milk chocolate with some nuts, and it's just baby sugar.
Really?
You don't wanna stay?
Okay.
This is the good stuff now. Why are they leaving?
We start singing. You came in like a rain.
We're still updated.
Oh, sorry. I told you these microphones were a bad idea. They're a great idea for accessibility. They're a bad idea for immature. What? Yeah, that's true. Story. Okay. We will now move on to the consent agenda. Consent agenda contains approval of minutes. The 2023-24 budget calendar, the school board calendar, as well as the employee handbook.
I move to remove the employee handbook
From the,
from the consent agenda. Oh,
Ah, that's correct. I was waiting for a second, but you're right. You can just pull it. So, is there a motion then to approve, or does anybody object to approving the minutes, the budget calendar and the board calendar as part of the consent agenda?
Nope.
Okay, so those are approved. And we have pulled the employee handbook out, so then,
so I would think that there was a suggestion to have our lawyers look at it before we approve it,
oh, yeah, yes.
so we probably
well,
shouldn't. approve
Well,
it.
I just made that suggestion as like we should do that and we can and will do it. I don't know that we need like a,
do we need to delay passing the handbook until that happens?
no.
Well,
No. Okay, I would move that we approve the employee handbook. Oh, I shouldn't move, should I? Cause I'm not, I can.
Well, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking we approve the employee handbook with the caveat that that includes our lawyers doing a pass over it and giving us any advice.
Then we could amend it. as
we have
needed.
to reapprove it then.
No, we would make amendments if there were reasons to modify it for, if there were any legal reasons to modify it. We would amend it.
Sounds like there might be.
I didn't hear that per se because the personnel records had the caveat of within the extent of the law, so I think Rob was making more a point around, like, practically speaking, you wouldn't, like, there would be no reason to have this language in there because of, like, I think that's what he was saying in practice, sorry, my brain. As long as we follow that with the requirement of the law, I have a feeling that's going to be fine, but
What was this other complaint?
the other one was
Personal
around
record.
data. No, technology.
Oh, technology, right, that,
So, and if they say just to add in a pre-authorization, then we do that.
I didn't hear anything that would make me want to postpone approving the handbook.
Any employer who violates this section around technology may be fined not less than $10 no more than $100 for each violation. Oh, no, sorry, that was a different one. That's personnel records. Okay. I mean, I don't have time to look over these statutes at this moment, and I'm okay with the potential risks that Rob identified. Because they would include us violating the law, which trumps our employee handbook. So
And then we can ask.
because
our
it would
law-
only be against the law if we
violate,
did it.
exactly.
And then we would be asking the lawyers to do the due diligence.
I just wanted to look for something. I found it. So we actually have a newly approved personnel records policy. So we
What
have
is
the
here?
thing in the handbook that says policy trumps. So if there's anything wrong with our personnel records in the handbook, it would
Well, shouldn't our,
go to the policy.
shouldn't our handbook,
Yeah, but
Eventually, yes.
yes, but right now, because we're working through so
But
many
policy
policies,
83 Yeah, 8320, and I obviously didn't have time to like read this right now and look at that and compare it. But we do have at the beginning of the handbook that we would follow policy over. the
I can
policy.
follow up with Rob about the current policy. Or the policy as it, if it's approved. And what our lawyers say. So can is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the handbook.
With the caveat that the attorney will.
Well, I don't think we need to make that a caveat to the motion, but I mean, I wouldn't, I would just make a motion to approve the handbook. But you could,
did they already sign a handbook this year?
Yes.
Some
Well,
people did, some
some
people
haven't.
didn't. So we're operating under last year's handbook currently.
Right,
So why pass one now if it's not ready? And then if we
Because
can
these
get
are-
it ready,
These are the
For next year.
policies they wanna have in place, and I think in practice are utilizing.
Well, right,
To some
I mean, we
degree.
passed the policies.
So
I
there
mean,
are
we
a
have
few
to follow
changes in the
this.
handbook, like the number of consecutive days they can take off is increased, and there's some other things that are actually beneficial to staff
Yeah,
in the new handbook.
Which would go into effect as soon as we adopt
Mhm.
it.
I will second your motion to approve the handbook. And now we can, and so any further discussion? I mean, we
I'll have
will
the lawyer
have the
review
lawyer
it.
look it over. I think that, I actually,
That's-
that was actually
yeah,
on the radar.
It makes
prior to
sense
this.
anyways.
I mean, as long as that's like.
I just didn't want them to look at the draft.
Yeah.
well, I
want them
don't,
To
yeah,
look at, you know, like.
It makes
the one- I
sense.
didn't want it to change before we had our lawyers look at it, or they would charge us double to look at it again.
and it's not just a commitment, I mean, we are directing that our lawyers should look at it.
I'm gonna send
Yeah.
an email right now.
Okay.
With the handbook in
No,
it.
no, I know, I'm just clarifying, okay,
Yeah.
sorry,
No,
Okay.
I support what you're saying.
okay,
We can,
Mhm.
so you want to amend the motion to say we approve the handbook with the caveat that
our district, or our lawyer needs to review
review
it,
it.
yeah,
It will go into
or
effect
must review it,
and the lawyer will review it, correct? A lawyer.
okay.
And if they find anything, we'll bring it back to the board. All right, is anybody opposed to that, approving that motion is? Carly, you got that?
I'm trying to write it down. So it's a motion to approve the employee handbook, subject to the directive that the district
No,
lawyer,
not subject, because it will be
Included.
approved.
with the caveat that. I don't
And
know what
also
that
we
means.
direct staff to have the attorney review it to ensure that we're
Yeah.
not violating anything.
So it's a motion to approve the employee handbook.
With a directive to Allison to make sure that legal
Send
reviews
it
it.
right now.
With
Yeah.
the directive
Currently
that-
happening
that-
as we speak.
that, with the directive that the district
These are
lawyer review the handbook. The whole handbook, is that what
Yeah.
we're,
The whole handbook.
Mhm.
with, for what purpose? What are we
Ensure
asking?
legal compliance.
Compliance, right,
Ensure compliance with law.
yes.
So one thing about you were talking about consecutive days of benefits to staff, but if policy trumps handbook, what does the policy say about
We
consecutive?
don't
days?
have a policy
So
on it.
that's in the handbook,
So the
okay,
practice
got it,
stands.
Until we get there.
Okay,
got it.
I heard no opposition, I believe, to approving the motion. So the motion carries. All right, moving on out of the consent agenda. The superintendent's report. Sorry.
So I just had three things so Danielle and I talked about, doing a superintendent's report. More typical to what most districts do, where it's just highlighting some of the big work that we're doing in the district and sharing that with the board, so. Escalated a bit from maybe a weekly update, but not big enough for maybe a full presentation at the moment. So that's kind of how I looked at it. So the three things that I wanted to just share were, the strategic planning, just an update on that, facilities, and then I shared the caregiver survey draft and just sort of next steps on that. So for strategic planning, our facilitator, Joe Schrader, met with the administrative team on December 11th to take the work basically to the next level. So you guys have copies of the final looking products from the committee's work, which included the mission, vision, pillars, and strategic actions. So those are documents that he's going to make even more crisp. He's sending them off to his graphics. So what you have is sort of a draft. It'll look clearer and crisper when it's done. That'll go on the district website. We'll come up with a plan in January as a leadership team on how to communicate that out to caregivers and to the community, just to make sure that that's really promoted. The next step for the leadership team is we took the committee's last work, which was really a brainstorm list of measures. And then we also looked at strategic actions. So for each of those pillars, we are crafting action steps. And what's really nice is it's very similar to how we do our 100-day plans right now, where we're just mapping out what work we're going to do, but now it's really nicely aligned to each of those pillars. So it'll start in about January and then it'll go to next January, which at first felt odd, but it actually ended up being really nice because we talked about what are the things we want to get done before this school year, what's the summer work look like, and then what do we kick off in the fall. So it's actually kind of a nice cycle. It felt really good to the team. So under each of those, we've just started mapping out action steps. We're not done. We got the work started with Joe, and then we're going to follow up in our leadership meetings in January to finalize that. And then the next step after that is to create a dashboard that will actually have 5-year indicators, and those we're gonna take from that brainstorm list that the committee came up with. So we were working through and just really going through and just doing some highlighting. So this was the list the committee created of all the indicators. And as a team, we just started going through and highlighting. One of the things we really noticed right away is that we have a lot of good information in our surveys, but we wanted to align it. So there might be a goal that we have or strategic action, and there might be these 3 questions that fit with that and that'll help measure it. So really digging into our caregiver and our staff and our student surveys to make sure that we're looking at the questions that align to the goals. So that's the next step. And then we would create a dashboard that would be, we're measuring those indicators for 5 years. So every year, the community would be able to see growth or not on those indicators. So that kind of stays static for 5 years. The actions would change every single year to get to improve those. And then another piece that we really liked was one of the examples he gave us was a district that does fast facts. And so we thought, if we have these indicators we're measuring across the district, fast facts is a way to highlight the really, the accomplishments in each building and even at a district level, but that's something that we could communicate out to families. So the fast facts and the dashboard, we're looking at fall to implement those first in September and then use those to measure. So that's the work. It's not complete yet, but that's where we are as a admin team. And then obviously, as things are finalized, they'll come to the board so that you guys can see the final products. So it's exciting. So that's strategic planning. where we are right now. Yeah.
I thought we only had questions during the report. Anybody?
I'm wondering where this is totally technical question. I can't find the commitments on the webpage, on our website.
They should be under, so we changed the title from mission and vision to strategic planning.
Yep, I'm there.
Let me double check and make sure they're there.
I'm under strategic plan.
Nope, they're not there yet. So we'll put these final documents up. there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, this was sort of on our timeline of pages.
Yeah.
Still being worked on now that we have these.
Yep.
Anyone else? The fast facts and the dashboard, are those like part of something we already subscribe to or use, or is that gonna be like a purchase or?
No, we would just
plan.
create, like what we talked about was creating a document so that we can edit, like update it each year.
Oh.
So it'd just be like a live link or we just use something we have, we created ourselves.
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't be
Oh, I see.
we'd use Canva or something nice. And ask Karen to help us make it
And
look pretty.
you guys are still working on your action steps,
Mhm.
but you'll bring that to us to share out like a cow or something?
Yep, so we're planning on our first 2 leadership meetings in January, trying to get those finalized.
Okay. Cool. What's the next one? Facility?
Facilities, so just some timeline, it's getting exciting. So update on facilities planning, so we had our community conversations, obviously in January. Then we did a student focus group with some Glen Hills alumni over at Nicolay, which was fun. January cow, the team is coming, so you will have them back to do a presentation of the master plan and all the options. So that'll be for feedback, for questions, for discussion. And then we have some more engagement sessions. So we have a staff engagement feedback session late January. We're gonna bring in Baird to talk about referendum finance in February. We'll have a second community conversation in February. And then we'll bring at the end of February recommendations for master plan, and then March. So it's all building to this March community survey. Where we would then and that'll be Perry from Donovan. So he's gonna work with us on that. So he'll come and talk about the survey. And get feedback around that, and then survey results in May. And then next steps.
Good.
That's just really the timeline.
I won't be at January cow, so you're gonna be running.
What?
I won't be. at January. So hopefully we have to make sure we have. Form. Okay, just, yeah.
We can look at dates too.
No, it's okay. I can watch that too. It's okay. We can talk about it later. Okay.
And then the last thing is the caregiver. Oh, sorry, did anybody else have facilities questions? The last thing is the caregiver survey. So you'll notice I did not have Barry come to present. And one of the things he talked about was, he said in a lot of districts, he will just share the draft reports. Obviously administrative team started digging into them already. And then at the end, he'll come and present for all 3 surveys. The other thing he talked about was, having a conversation around whether or not you want to do a survey every year, because a lot of districts don't do it every year. And especially thinking about our facilities work, and that we're gonna be asking for a lot of feedback and be doing a community survey there. We'll have to balance whether or not we want to do another caregiver survey next year. Some districts just do every other. We had 100 less participants this year on the caregiver survey, which was disappointing. I don't know if it was just because last year was novel, it was the first time we did it and everybody wanted to chime in. A lot of the scores were lower this year, which was disappointing. So I asked Perry to really dig through, so he's like really digging through those comments to find themes. For us as a team so that we can set goals around those.
I wonder if we did a better job of, we made more effort to get the word out that the survey was out there. I remember getting a lot more dings
Last time,
last year.
yeah. It's definitely
Or
possible.
I wonder if more people are satisfied.
Yeah,
And
that's the
have
thing. You
less-
might have dropout rates with.
People who don't have any, like, don't have any major concerns or major, it's one possible.
So we'll do the rollout. I'll schedule the rollout meetings. I mean, they weren't really largely attended last year, but it was helpful. I did a Zoom and I did an in-person, and it was just like sharing with families, here's our celebrations, here's our areas of growth. Can you give me feedback on what we could do better in those areas of growth, and just getting that. So that dialogue was good last year too. So I'll do that again.
I was contemplating whether we could get board members to go to like a PTO meeting to do like caregiver, like connection, like talk to us about your questions or priorities. That could also be another way to get feedback on some of the.
From the 4 people who attend the PTO meetings.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
like, with like candidates forum, maybe coming
Yeah,
up, people
yep,
go to
yep.
those. And if you say the whole board will be there, come ask us your questions, tell us what your priorities are. But no board business would be conducted, you might. It's just a
Yeah.
thought, it's a thought I have.
And that reminded me, I forgot to mention, the February foundation PTO meeting, Mike Hacker's gonna come. We're sort of gonna straddle it and try to get like the last 15 and the first 15, so he can give
Oh, yeah,
some
so maybe we can.
facilities
coordinate.
info there
Okay.
too. And then the last thing that I was gonna say is that we have the staff engagement survey, scheduled for January 26th through February 4th. And student engagement from March 4th through the 15th, that's tentatively, so I have to get with Perry and start working on staff.
And you always share drafts out with
Mhm.
us, so we can give you feedback. I was bummed, I told Allison that we didn't ask about transportation in the caregiver survey, and we didn't ask about food. And those are like two, I just feel like that
And
was
those
like a
could be
miss.
standalone questions, because you're not like measuring it year to year, so we can
Yeah.
always throw those on.
I know, but it
Yeah.
just, yeah.
And one of the things the administrative team mentioned was we didn't ask for demographics
And
in the caregiver survey, like it
Right.
didn't even. But then one of our goals is obviously empowered community and making sure we have all voice.
Yep.
So we need to have that.
I wonder too if there's a way to add a question, like right when you roll it out, like right at the outset, saying like. I have no concerns with, we're pleased with our participation in the district educational system.
Oh, like
They-
that.
And like,
Yeah.
just a different data point
Or-
collection, like,
Could we have
or
iPads?
does that does that discourage people from going in and actually filling it out? I don't-
Well, I mean, if you got something to say, I think you'll say it if you're there. Another thing might be, do we have like Chromebooks or iPads at athletic events or band concerts? And we say, hey, you're here, do you have 5 minutes? Can you just take this survey really quick? Because I think you're gonna find the families who might miss their Thursday folder, their email with the link.
One
Just
of
another way to-
One of the things he said they used to do postcards, but it's become such a situation where just about everybody has a smartphone.
Yeah.
That there's not really that gap.
Well,
so
QR
much
code, though,
anymore.
like, so if we had a QR code and
Right,
you're
that
at a
would be
sporting
better.
event and you're like, hey,
Yeah,
take this survey while you're sitting here, while you're at a chess.
Maybe,
meet,
yeah.
Or whatever, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
might, I mean, it depends on
the chess.
how good your kid
anything.
is doing in the sport
Yeah.
or whatever.
Can do a lot in
No,
3
that's
hours.
I think those are ways we could look at being more inclusive, getting more response. Okay,
Absolutely.
awesome. So I'm up, board work. Okay,
Thank you, Allison.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
yeah. So we also, this is gonna be like a new agenda item. So I just wanted to kind of introduce it. I don't have too much to share out this time, but I want it to be a space where the board can check in on goals we set for ourselves or district goals that we have set and sort of like check in on those, and also to share out any board work that's going on, any community engagement we're doing, things like that. So just to increase transparency, communication, engagement, the whole nine, hold ourselves accountable the way we're holding Allison accountable. We know recent goals have included like creating accountability around budget process, budget calendar, budget work calendar. The current work we're doing aside from policy would be the IDI work. And equity committee. So I just wanted to give, because Carla and I are on the equity committee, I just wanted to give an update there. The equity committee has met twice. We've had really awesome meetings. We also encouraged and had a lot of folks attend the facility community conversations because we wanted to make sure that the equity lines and non-negotiables were discussed. And this year, the goal of our committee is to, actually, you can see we met on 12/13.
Oh, it's still up.
It's still there. We reviewed our goals, which are to promote the documents that the committee created last year. And if we are successful, we will, we've identified 3 groups we want to hone in on: students, family and community, and staff. And if we're successful, these groups will know that these documents exist. They will know that the documents are for them. This is not someone else's work. This doesn't apply to other people, not me. They are for me to use, for me to apply. And they will have at least 1 or 2 tools to engage with them. They will know how to make them work for themselves. And so that is what we're meeting about. That's the work we're doing. The IDI work is ongoing, and so far the board and administration, SST team, coaches, interventionists, psychologists, counselors, basically everybody but our classroom teachers have participated in and paras have participated in the IDI survey. They have gotten a one-on-one debrief, right, with Dimitri, and they have created an IDI like plan to improve and increase their cultural competency and awareness. And so now we're in the portion where we're working on accountability with that work. So next month, I thought it would be good for the board to reflect on, during this board work update, for us to reflect on where we are at with our action plans and our IDI work, and do some of that reflection and model what that looks like. So that would be the plan for the January board meeting as part of the board work update. And then upcoming stuff is working on finalizing onboarding documents in that process. We've done a lot of work over the last 1.5 years, thanks to Carla, and having Karn has also given us a chance to identify areas for growth and ways to formalize the process. So that's also on our radar, and hopefully something that we will be doing soon. And we are making our way through policy. So that's it. And I don't know if anybody else wants to share out. Yeah.
I would just add like the equity lens. I've actually had people from other districts reach out to me and ask for copies of it.
Nice.
Because they're having issues with their own districts and they want to be able to present it because they have concerns about equitable behavior. I suspect some people in the audience may have pointed those people.
There's a community group in Whitefish Bay too that was excited about pulling our resolutions and equity ones.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's nice.
Do we need to have the board vote on equity committee membership and re-upping the committee?
We do, and so we should put that on the.
Because it's an ad hoc committee, right? So
We renewed the committee, but we have not approved the members officially.
yeah, so I think we need to update the member list.
Yeah, we could do that next board meeting under consent, or we could even do it at Cal possibly.
Yeah.
It's a kind of nominal action.
Let's
We'll get
put it
you a
on the
list for
January
Cal.
thing. Okay.
Okay. Great. How do you guys feel about that new item?
I understand it better now.
Okay, I know, there should be, we'll add a little, like, what is this? So, like,
I was like,
why are you?
And so this would be a space where, this would also be a space where if Karen went to a conference, she could share back.
Exactly.
And that kind of,
Professional.
I like it.
Yeah, like when we do our self-assessment, this will be a space to sort of talk about that too.
Yep.
Things like that.
I guess I should interject then at this point that it turns out, I do have to officially run,
Right.
and I wasn't sure if everyone had been made aware of that, so the,
Sorry,
yeah, so the,
Ooh,
so the group,
We were just in tears.
the group.
wait, how'd that happen?
Well, so there was a misunderstanding with, on the part of
Election
the
commission.
election commission, so that what they. Sorry,
Who are they?
The
they're an
Milwaukee
organization
County,
that runs the election.
Milwaukee
commission.
County has an election commission
Oh,
and the
okay.
state does.
And so they reached out to the district and had indicated that I'd be able to serve out to the end of Tamika's term, which was inconsistent with what we understood. And then after some walking around a lot of
After
a lot of
celebrations.
bushes, it turned out that we were right in the first place and the election committee member had made a mistake.
Yeah.
And there was a correction that needed to be made in some paperwork that had really nothing to do with me in particular. So
Yeah.
So you've turned in your paperwork?
I did.
Excellent.
Good. All right, let's move on to items for discussion consideration. NATC membership and transportation RFP.
Oh,
What?
yes,
What?
oh, sorry, we were gonna ask if we could. I don't know
Oh,
if
you
I'm allowed
wanted to
say that,
move, oh,
Because Kayla's here, so we were wondering if we could move C up,
It's okay,
Open enrollment?
just because Kayla's here.
that's okay, don't worry about it.
How far?
I don't know, why couldn't we move to amend the agenda now?
Can we?
I mean, I don't, it's, yes. I think we could.
I think you can always move to it.
Yeah.
Right? Or the alternative, if you're on the ultra technical, is that you would table.
Ah, there you go.
I moved to table items 6A
And
and
B.
6B until
Until
after 6C.
There we go.
Correct.
I'm just asking. that.
They're on the table.
Second,
They're
any
waiting on the
objections?
table.
No objection, so we're gonna start with open enrollment policy, sorry, Lindsay.
I know you took a very long short, so.
Okay, Allison, take it away.
All right, so I've gone through some iterations since I loaded everything into board docs. Basically, the recommendation that I'm making for the open enrollment policy, and this is a second reading because we did a first reading and we had some discussion around guarantee versus preference and some of those pieces. So the recommendations, if you look at the exact summary, would just be number 1 and number 2. So that would be to change the language at the determination of seats in January, that we would not be guaranteeing any seats. And that if you were a tuition waiver, you'd have to reapply for open enrollment.
But you're not gonna recommend the item 3.
No, just
Okay.
1 and 2. The other pieces, even though that first piece says that we're not guaranteeing, there is a space later when we talk about criteria that we can do preference for siblings, so we still have that option to have preference for siblings, so that part doesn't go away. The reason for the change is, it was one of those things, and I talked with a lot of you about it, like looking at the budgetary impacts, looking at all the different pieces. I had a really nice check-in with one of you that did some research and just checked around with other districts, and I got some emails from other districts. And most districts have actually moved away from requiring you to reapply at the transition, so we would be outside of that if we were to change that. And then we reached out actually to one of the lawyers we work with that specializes in special education and talked about number 4, it's part C under decisional criteria for non-resident applications, number 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
And I talked to her and we actually have a meeting after the break to talk about how we could put a process in place to utilize those pieces so that it would be more of an individual basis. If there were a student that came that was a non-resident student and then the needs started to exceed our ability to provide services, then we could make that decision with the family during the IEP process versus a blanket rule. I talked to Kayla about that a little bit and she said that it has been utilized before, but all the way back to Sue.
Yeah,
Doyle.
it was done once in the past. It was
It was
this,
in past policy too around open enrollment.
right,
All
right,
of these
yes,
things were.
yeah, it is. It
just
it
hasn't been
doesn't,
in practice.
Yeah.
yeah, in the 25 years I've been here, I've only seen it happen one time.
And in the, I'm sorry, are you?
Nope, you're good.
still-
Oh, and then some of the other options that Lindsay and I have started to explore are, looking through the criteria to bill the resident student, so that could be another potential option that we could use. Outside of the policy, and then looking
Wait,
into.
sorry, explain that.
So if we did have a student who was a non-resident and all of a sudden we like needed an additional paraprofessional or some of those services, we can look into how we can potentially bill their resident district for
Yeah.
those services. So that's another like way we can lessen the impact on the budget. And then there's also something we're gonna look into at DPI around high cost special ed aid. So there's some things we're gonna investigate.
So, but that first part you're talking about, billing a resident district is not part of this
No,
policy,
it's
that's just
outside.
like a DPI
It's just
statute.
something that we could do to try to alleviate some of those costs.
And I think, Allison, the intent of that is to try to, you know, these kids are ours. I mean, once they're here, they're ours. We want them to be ours, right? But also we have to keep in mind that 33% reimbursement for services is onerous to any district, and if they're not our residents, then we do have to take that into consideration. So if there's other funding
Mhm.
opportunities, then we also want to make sure we're
Yeah.
tapping into those, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm. And you Xed out the reapplication procedures, there's like two different.
It
kinds of
didn't let me,
highlighting
yeah,
too,
it didn't
so
let me take the strike through off of the other one, so I just highlighted it, so that would stay.
what
That
will
we would
say
not
orange.
we would not ask them to reapply.
will not require accepted non-resident students to reapply. As
Got
long
it.
as
So
Sorry, I couldn't get a hold of Steve, for some reason it wasn't letting me like edit that again.
So the orange is, you're
That's the
recommending that
language,
stay.
yep.
Yeah.
Except, but above, doesn't it talk about if your tuition waiver, you have to reapply?
Yes.
So a tuition waiver is not an open enrolled student.
Oh,
Tuition
okay.
waiver, is someone who moves during the school year, and there's two different,
Uh,
the form's got very specific dates as to when they have moved.
okay.
If they have moved after the school year ends, we do
Okay.
not have to give them a tuition waiver. We only have to grant tuition waiver after the third Friday in September.
Okay, right, okay.
So we've got one student currently on tuition waiver for this year, so
Okay.
they will have to apply if
Got
there's a
it.
seat available.
Understood, thank you.
So I'm following the best I can. Is this policy now? Is this a policy with the edits I'm seeing that you are firmly recommending that we pass?
Yeah.
Or adopt?
Yes.
And what do you think?
Well, from what I understand, the majority of it is what we have done in the past. With the exception
The
Tuition.
tuition
of
waiver.
the tuition waiver guarantee. And as I had presented once in the past with I went in and I looked at the number of students who had been from tuition waiver to an automatic seat. And we had a lot of them that were within the first year that they were here. I would say more of them were, less of them were kids who'd been in the district for like 5 years and then the family moved and they wanted the last 3. Much more of them were a student that had only been here for a couple months, a year, maybe 2 years. So, and you have the option too of looking at what the seats availability is, for students.
So we're no longer guaranteeing seats for siblings either.
We've
correct?
never guaranteed seats for siblings.
Okay.
At one point in time, our policy was not as clear. But it has always just been a preference, because there was actually one year where we had 6 siblings and 5 seats. And, so that 6th kid didn't get in. No, luckily, there were seats the following year and the student made it in. But yeah, we've never guaranteed for siblings, we've only given preference.
Which is what this policy still says, right?
Mhm.
What does preference look like?
Yeah, I was kind of curious about that.
How do you
What-
guarantee but give up?
When the applications come in, applications start coming in the first week in February. They put in the school that they're attending, the district that they live in. Do you have siblings that attend? If so, what are their names? So every single application that comes in, every day I go in and I look at them. If it is a sibling, I print that one out and it goes to the top of my pile, especially for my K-5s. So all of my ones that are K-5 siblings, because historically, that's where our seats have been in K-5, those go to the top. So if I had like 5 siblings last year and we had 10 seats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were the siblings. It was an automatic. So, if I get an application that says, my child, goes there, or my child's sibling goes there and this is the sibling's name, and I go, oh, no, they don't. The phone number's on there. I call the parents. They say, you need to go in and correct, your child is not attending here. We've had families who are confused because the older siblings at Nicolay. And I'm
yeah,
like, I'm
sure.
sorry, Nicolay is a separate district. If you could go in and correct that. If they don't correct it, I still don't accept it because I know it's wrong. I know, and if it were something that were to be taken to the state, because people can appeal, we could simply say, well, here's the student, and there is no sibling in our district.
So you have this list of all the people getting preference, and then when it comes time to select, the first selection comes from the preferenced children in a random selection.
Well, if I've got 10 seats, I just give, 5, they
okay.
automatically get it.
Okay.
If
you have more.
if there were 6 seats, I use an Excel, random.
Okay.
Random
Tool,
number.
randomizer. And so I would take those students and I would randomize them and then, assign seats from there.
And that process is actually posted, like people can come. and
Right.
You can watch it.
Watch
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
Yeah.
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 Oh, is it a
Well, you-
DPI model?
Well, no,
Well,
but
you
you can watch me
No,
from
just
there. You
people have
can't
to be
see.
able to watch.
Yeah, because I've got the names are on it.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, though,
So-
like.
Yeah, when I first took the position, she literally drew numbers out of a hat. Well, when you got 400 applications, and at the time they were making us do a wait list for every grade, and it doesn't make sense to do a wait list for a grade where you don't have
Mhm.
seats available, because then families call, where am I on the wait list? Well, you haven't moved because there are no seats, and
Right.
people like, well, somebody leaves the district, then there's a seat. No, somebody from, an 8th grader moves out, doesn't mean that I open an open enrollment seat. So,
Ah, I
yeah,
see.
so, yeah, I do it digitally so that I don't have to write names, cut and pull.
Okay.
Okay. Uh,
Oh, I moved to, ask. Adopt this policy.
second reading, okay.
Second.
All right, are there any objections to adopting this policy? Hearing none, the policy is adopted. Thank you.
Second reading.
Now we will move on to NATC membership and transportation.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying.
Yep, no problem.
All right.
I want the microphone, woman, there's the microphone for
Yeah.
you.
Well, I can get here.
Both.
Lindsay,
people
I mean,
behind you
You
can-
need to, please let us know if we need to be using the microphones. If we're being too casual, tell us.
So we are up
Please tell us.
to,
I know, you have to be close. You have to like put it really close.
Yeah.
You have to talk like this.
So would you like us to use the mics? Does that help you?
Are you sure? Kind of fun. Yes, I'm good. It's fun for us.
Okay, fine.
I'm happy to use my mic.
You're not, you can't be trusted.
all the time, have technical difficulties.
Okay. Okay, if we gotta keep her all
So
night.
we are due to have our NATC agreement, end at the end of the school year. So, for the, transportation agreement, so we have a NATC, the Nicolay Area Transportation Committee Agreement, and then we have a separate contract with Go Right Way. So, 2 pieces that need to be considered. Both of them are, going to be ending at the end of the school year, and per the language of the contract, we have to decide what we're gonna do by the end of this fiscal year or calendar year in December. So in the notes that you can see from the memo from all 4 area districts, Nicolay, Fox Point, Bayside, Mapleville, and us, we are all part of the NATC commission. One thing to note is that it is part of state statute that the high school district in the area is responsible for the transportation of the K-8 schools. So it is really nice that we are able to be part of the agreement and have a voice and really be able to represent our district and really want to make sure that we are being heard and making sure that the needs that our specific district need are being met. So what we are asking for.
Oh, Lindsay.
Lindsay, sorry, wait.
So Nick, you're saying Nicolay, there's some statute that says Nicolay is responsible for what exactly?
For overseeing transportation for all K-8 districts.
So they're not required to enter into the NATC doesn't have to exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with this, we would like to continue the agreements that we can continue to advocate for our district and make sure that we're doing what's best for our families. So we would like to kind of run a parallel where we are trying to negotiate a 5-year contract with Go Right Way, just because that is our current provider. And then also, if they are not able to meet the for lack of a better word, demands or the ask that each of the districts have asked for, that we would then be able to go out to RFP or request for proposal. One of the biggest reasons that we wanted to entertain the opportunity to extend the contract with Right Way is because there is no guarantee that if we go out to bid, that we will get a lower rate. If anything, it could be potentially quite a bit higher. And, you know, when we're looking at budgetary and fiscal impact is, you know, if we can negotiate a stable amount for that with them in a long-term contract, that could be beneficial for us to be able to plan long-term financially. And we wouldn't know necessarily that another provider would be able to do that and do it in a without hitting us with a major impact. One of the other pieces that with the agreement is that we are asking for Go Right Way to essentially start from scratch for all of our routes. So really looking at what are some of the efficiency, they always do look at it throughout the year as if there's a bus with lower ridership, are we able to condense routes? One of the things that we do want to look at potentially is there an opportunity, and we would want to, you know, reach out to families and serving them, is having both Parkway and Glen Hill ride on the same bus. Is there any cost savings to that? How would families feel about that? Also entertaining is the opportunity to shift start time. One of the opportunities that if we were to combine routes, Glen Hill would potentially be able to start earlier. And that is something that, you know, has been conversation.
Glen Hill's earlier?
Yeah,
Just like the 15 minutes earlier.
because
So
they start so late, it's like,
Oh, now, I
Yeah.
don't like.
The day goes
interesting.
late.
yeah.
but I mean, it's also, you
We
know,
could tighten that time up in between.
If
so
they
they
were on
could-
the same bus.
if would that allow us to start Parkway later in Glen Hills and like just kind of find that balance in between for both schools? But that would be one of the options of the things that we would want them to look at and investigate to see what would be the cost savings to do that. And then we also, we have to reach out to the county to do a hazard study. One of the things we also want to look at is that right now we stop at every driveway and we want to see if there's an opportunity to provide like one stop at the end of a cul-de-sac. In order to do that, we would have to have our hazard study done by the police department. But that would take essentially like 6 to 8 months for that to be completed. So that's one of the other pieces that we would want worked into a contract with whatever provider we go with, is that if we have that study done and there's an opportunity to change the stop, that would be updated and also addressed. So we are in the midst of working on the contract with the transportation company. And so once we have that finalized, we would bring that to our board to review, just to make sure there's nothing else that you guys would want to address and any concerns. Nothing is being approved for the transportation contract tonight. What I'm asking for approval is for the NAPC agreement, just for us to continue the work with our partner districts.
And that's for 5 years.
Yeah.
So, because it says right here, so if a member school board does not approve the recommendation resulting from an NATC Board of Control vote, which would have to pass 3-1, right? Because you would have a 2-2 tie. I mean, let's say that
Oh,
then you would have a tiebreaker with the superintendents, which could also be 2-2. So I'm not exactly sure how that works, but
Then what, yeah,
They do it some.
yeah.
we just keep waiting it.
So this NATC agreement's for 5 years. How long is a busing agreement usually?
we would want it to be the same as
5
that,
years,
yeah.
okay.
Yes.
And so like, what if, you know, we're in this and I know it's not like, I'm not saying like anybody would make a decision that would hurt a district or something like that. But But,
Nothing. Go
oh,
ahead, sorry.
but if there were an agreement made where it's like, oh, that actually makes it's not really cost effective for us. You know, kind of, it's above the budget that we would have liked, but it's within everyone else's budget. I mean, it says that, all member districts are responsible for the obligations approved by the Board of Control for the duration of the negotiated transportation contract, so that would lock us in for 5 years.
But I would also say that there's in the contract, it also says that if there's any changes, so for example, if there's a route change that has to happen in one of the other partner districts that would impact one of the other schools, it has to be discussed before it can be implemented. So if like one of the schools want to add a route and it's going to impact another school, they can't add another route or remove another route without letting that other district know. So if there's any change in routes, all of the partner districts have to know. The one thing that is nice about that is that we run on our own tier. So our buses are Parkway and Glen Hill. Like, for example, Fox Point Bayside and Mapledale, they share a route with Nicolay. So if Nicolay makes a change in the route, it's gonna impact Fox Point, Bayside, and Mapledale. Like, none of their changes, unless it's a private school, will impact us because we run on our own tier.
Yeah,
Except that's exactly what happened to us
But
2
it-
years ago.
But the irony is it didn't happen. I don't know why that was
That's what was communicated
communicated,
to
like,
us.
we should have been able to adjust.
And so
I don't know why
that's one of the
that's-
things that I think is just really important to
Mhm.
reiterate, that if there's an adjustment with start times or an adjustment with our school
It
itself,
should not have
we
been.
can,
So-
we can advocate for that change.
Can I, this is a piggyback on yours, just as far as timing. So if we sign this, if we approve this contract, this is 24 through 29. Our current right-way contract expires when?
At the end of 24.
At
June
so
of
December, June of
June,
24.
okay.
So is that basically the time frame with which we have to figure out if they're gonna give us a
they're
amendable
gonna-
contract versus somewhere else? So we could, so getting into this right now. If we find out that this NATC is not good for us, I don't know, say that was the case and we wanted to get out of it. We could actually say, we want out of it now. And we would be able to get out of this contract through June of 2024, because
No.
that's because that's the current transportation contract.
Right.
Oh.
And you give notice and your notice right?
No,
Yeah, but
because.
no,
Oh,
we
no, that's for
if they-
Nicolay,
if they
Nicolay and all
passed
that.
it,
So for
if-
us.
So our
it would be-
NATC
if they
agreement that
passed it.
we didn't want to be in the agreement anymore, we would have to do it by the end of December.
But
If
even
we
if we're
don't-
not in the NATC, Nicolay owns our transportation decisions.
Right.
Because
Because
If we decide to handle our transportation, we take on all of our transportation. So all of our private school kids, we would have to have a separate bus, all of like anything with shuttles, like going from Glen Hill to Nicolay for any other classes, like any of those, we wouldn't be able to share with anybody else if we take the transportation costs on them.
So
Yeah,
the-
but by joining the NATC. We're letting them decide. You know, and this, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we're essentially giving them the power to decide what our next busing contract will be. If it passes 4031. And we disapprove of it, we're still stuck with it for 5 years.
But I would say we all have an equal say because we all are coming to the table as 25% of that NATC agreement. So it's not like Nicolay is making all the determinations, like all of us have to come into an agreement.
Well, no, I'm saying like if you voted no, but the rest of them voted yes.
We can get out
We're
of it.
obligated, we can't get out of it.
Yeah, but I
We have
guess.
5 years of the
And
contract.
I agree with that, I get what you're saying, but I guess I would also say with knowing all the pieces that go into the transportation agreement, if there was something that we didn't agree with, then that would be my job to push hard and say, okay, if we're not going to have this, then what is something that we can do for Glen Hills instead?
And the only reason I'm kind of concerned about it is, I mean, one of the biggest expenses we had was transportation last year, and that's not anyone's fault. It happened, right? But like, were the other districts, did they also have increased costs that really affected their budgets too, or were we disproportionately hit with the expenses?
All of them.
And I mean, and so like. I don't know, I understand why you would form that NATC, because typically K-12 districts exist, right, we're K with a high school. but you know, they're responsible for all transportation costs of the K-12 district, right? So this kind of takes care of that. But my concern, I guess, is just the incentive structure of, you know, is it possible that we agree to go into the NETC again? And then we get hit hard with expenses, and those could have been avoided had we found transportation on our own, and it sounds like,
I think what would be hard to determine that though, Ben, is that if there's something that we're maybe taking on additional cost, but we're, because with the largest K-8 of the three K-8s, for example.
well, right,
Yeah, we're gonna have the largest increase, but I would also say that factoring in the private school transportation, the shuttle services, those are all significant costs that we share with the other districts that we would have to take on, and we're talking about our high cost of transportation now, like, it would be even more.
because, sorry, and one more thing, so like Mapledale is significantly smaller than.
Mhm.
So they pay less than what we pay.
They do, but they also run their route with Fox Point Bayside and Nicolay. So they have less wiggle room with what they can do because they're tied to other schools. So for example, if they have, like even into day-to-day operations, if a Nicolay bus is running 20 minutes late, that's gonna impact Mapledale and their
Yeah.
routes are gonna be, if they have a driver out. For us, we have
So
a lot
Nicolay
less.
doesn't share with us, even though they would have the same routes.
We
but
have our,
same
like, we
Glendale
have just
students in it.
Parkway and Glen Hill.
Okay,
So even though we are part of the NATC, we really kind of are our own separate
Well,
entity.
it's more of a commercial area too, so it's a little bit bigger, okay.
Lauren, do you have any questions?
I do. When you forgo right way, when you ask for that analysis, could you please ask for a combined route neighborhood pickup as well as two separate time neighborhood pickups?
Mhm.
Because one of the things we hear a lot from our fourth grade parents is their fear of having their fourth graders ride with their eighth graders. I can only imagine what our K-4 parents
Yeah.
will think.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, also there's siblings then possibly, right? So that could be helpful, but I would want the quote to be representative of any possible scenario.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that they and you know this, I'm sure, but typically they will, like, the first 3 seats or whatever of the bus are
Right.
4K and 5K, like, they always keep them really separate on the bus, but.
My kid doesn't stay in the seat.
One of the other things for the time that I just wanted to clarify is, so, the intent would be is if Right Way is not able to meet what we're asking for, we would want to go to RFP in middle of January, when the state convention is, because that's when a lot of the vendors are out. To really be able to, because as a consortium, we are a very desirable group because we are such a large route. And a large group of buses, so for a lot of places that's appealing.
Didn't we,
Wait, and I think Carla had some questions if Carla's done, and then.
When you say we go to RFP, you mean the NATC,
Yeah.
not, yeah, that's where I've been confused. Cause it sounds like I've never fully understood. If we're in the NATC negotiates the contracts. And as I'm reading this now, that contract is recommended, and then even if we vote it down, we're still in, right? That's what I read here. So if a member school board does not approve the recommendation from the NATC, all member districts are responsible for the obligations approved by the board for it. So basically, when we join the NATC, we're saying, doesn't matter if we like it or not. What the NATC says is what we're gonna do. So that's what you're observing, right?
yeah, that's
I
what I
mean,
just said,
that's-
yeah.
But if we're not, is it Nicolay who makes the decision?
And
That's
even
what
if,
I-
you're right, even if we don't have this, Nicolay is still making our decisions, is what I heard you say?
That's what I heard.
Yeah,
you say,
they're technically responsible, so if we decide like Nicolay, we don't want you to do it, then we're taking on like the complete ownership, that would be something I'd also have to get some clarification from DPI.
Right, because if they're legally obligated, we wouldn't even, how would they delegate that? Right?
That would be something I'd have to get clarification.
Right, so all this NATC is doing is giving us a seat at the table as a district that we're not entitled to. If you're right about what the law says. So this is like a it's a bone that's been thrown to districts by Nicolay, is how I'm understanding it, if you've
Yeah, and this is,
accurately described
the
the law.
NHTC agreement has been in place for 30
Yeah.
years.
Yeah,
Okay.
the timing of the last NATC and the busing contracts were never Maybe, I don't think, like, they weren't so. They didn't coincide such that like you would get locked into a transportation contract for 5 years and an ATC for 5 years. I was thinking like there's some possible wiggle room there. I have questions about like, so the RFP, I thought you said or before that we would get RFP as our own district and as a consortium.
It's part of the routing with when we ask for, in the RFP, we would say to a transportation company, what does it look like for providing routes for us as a group and as a single, like for us as a district alone?
Right.
So that's part of the RFP process. Like when you go to a transportation company, what does our route look like? So it's that route efficiency that we'd be asking for.
That's where I get
Oh.
confused on the we. There you mean we Glendale-River Hills. But
Because-
mostly when you talk about we in the RFP, you mean
The NATC.
NATC. Okay.
That's confusing for me.
Because what we're looking for with the routes is that, I guess I would say the Mableville and Back Point Bayside, because they do double tier routing, that's like a huge cost savings for them. For us, because we run on our own, like there is some cost saving that we could look at within our own routes, but there's not a lot of wiggle room for us because we already run on our own. Like with looking at the routes and locations of
Okay.
Back Point Bayside and Mableville.
So when we do this RFP, you're saying we would be looking at, are there cost savings if we join up with other districts in the routes?
Yeah,
That's
one
what
of the
you
big
mean.
pieces was like the private schools, you
Okay.
know, and seeing
Okay.
if there's a route that we can condense with, that right now, is there a shuttle, where rather than paying for a shuttle, that's stopping at one school and taking them to the private school, is could we make them part of the regular route?
Is that the voucher kids? Is that what you?
No, these are the, like St. Eugene's.
Oh, we have to provide transportation
Mhm.
for all private school kids, right?
I just have, I think one more, so when ideally, I know you're asking us to approve this today. The thing I think about this is that it has huge financial implications. But we don't have any of the financial information.
I wouldn't say the NATC does, I would say the
Well, I'm-
transportation agreement does.
I guess I'm wondering if it does, because I'm wondering historically, like if we looked at how we've been a part of this and what our transportation costs have been compared to other districts, I don't know if there's a way to figure it out, like what has been the savings or what has been the cost being part of this group, like I don't know if that is something that's discernible, but if it was, then that would be something that would inform this, whether this is good for us. Does that make sense or no?
So just a random question. Is there any point historically where something like this, which would be considered like a shared services agreement, has been disadvantageous to our district?
I vaguely remember someone saying that we once did an RFP just by ourselves and it ended up costing us more. Is that? am I
That
remembering
happened in another district, so I think that's probably when you were talking about that. But like at the start of my board term, we were looking at this and except that I don't have that information in front of me, like there were some
I think I know what you're talking about.
losses that we sustained that we were asking to be made whole for. We were also told that, yeah, but I mean, that's what we were told. I don't know that I understood it because I was so
I would say
green
that
at
the
the time,
difference,
but
yeah, the difference is that
And
we
there's
are
something
able
for it.
to tell right way, or whoever the provider is, we need to be looking at Glendale-River Hill routes. Where are the efficiencies in our route? Because the costs that we're responsible for are our routes. Like, we don't pay any additional fee to be in the NATC. Like, what we're responsible for our costs are our routes alone. So if we want to have a reduced cost savings, like, that's where I'm having that conversation with our bus company and saying, are we able to move some of these students? Because, and one of the pieces that we are really trying to put into the agreement for the transportation is taking ridership count more times throughout the year, because then we can see, 4 times a year, how are our buses looking? Are they full? Are we having students that really aren't riding the bus very often, that we could reduce the number of stops? And looking at that, but those are also different things that, as a district, like, we need to be more vigilant and being more gathering information to make sure that we are getting cost savings for us.
yeah, I don't think I have a like a problem with the NATC. I think it comes down to the negotiating of a contract once you get to RFP.
Right.
I think we probably have more power as a group of 4 districts. That's what makes sense to me, even though the setup predates us and I have questions about it. I
Like-
feel like,
Going off of what you're saying though is, like, that's what kind of concerns me is by joining the NATC now before anything is put in front of us with offers. I mean, we're locked in, so again, if you're like, no, this is disadvantageous to Glen Hills and you're outvoted 3-1, we're stuck for 5 years.
well, Lindsay
I guess
gave
the
the
only
advocate.
thing
No,
that I.
but we're also presuming that they're gonna be like out to.
No,
I mean,
I'm
typically these
not-
agreements are
again,
in place
it-
because they're collaborative.
Well, again, I mean.
You're gonna all do better.
Well, I understand that most people are gonna have common goals and
Yeah.
common incentives because everyone wants to keep the costs
Mhm,
lower.
absolutely.
But we are more spread out. We have more gas costs, I'm sure. You know, I could see a scenario where it's like, wow, that's kind of a big bill for Glen Hills or for Glendale-River Hills. And it's not as big of a bill for you guys because you've been able to condense your bus routes better than us.
Well,
That's
that's
gotta
what
be
we
on
got
us.
Anyways.
That would be
Well,
on
I
us.
understand,
Yeah.
so,
I think we would have remedy available through contract language, because there is a lot in the contract around good faith and what everyone is aiming for, which is efficiency and low cost for everybody. So I think like, if we really got screwed, which I
Well,
don't think is
and-
gonna happen, but I think if that really did happen, I think that we would have more remedy.
I'm
than-
just remembering what you're remembering, where there were some
Yeah.
issues in the past where it's like, okay,
But
that
we were-
didn't,
yeah.
but
It's
we were,
honestly
that's the thing I
frustrating
can't remember.
coming to
That's why.
I know.
I have no problem with the NATC after discussing it. I wasn't sure what it was, but
Yeah,
it sounds like it's basically a collective negotiation.
Right.
Tool for collective negotiation.
And then our portion of that is specific to the cost of our district. There's
and
no,
you'll see it in the contract, how it plays out, right?
right,
Where-
so
Well, there,
it just seems like, I understand it's been in place a long time, so it's hard to extrapolate what the benefit is compared to what it would potentially be, because we've got decades of relationship here, but generally speaking, shared services agreements across the North Shore
Yeah.
have been financially positive for the districts, so.
so, and just one more thing on that, where, you know. What was I gonna say about that?
While you're thinking, does anybody want to put out a motion?
Sure, so moved. Motion to approve the NATC contract for 24 to 29. That's the
Oh.
red line version, right?
Yeah, the one that's attached.
Oh, there's a non-red line, there's a red line.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
so
so-
motion to approve the NATC agreement for 24 to 29.
Second.
So the
Any
one
more
thing I was gonna
discussion?
say in here is that, or another thing, is that they were talking about how. You know, there's these things you're gonna negotiate and some of them are, you know, newer buses, you know, under 6 years versus a little bit older, and that obviously is gonna cost more money. So when we say that. You know, we're gonna all negotiate in good faith, I'm sure that's true, but some people might have different wants.
Yeah, but
But
I
that's,
think,
you
that's
know.
part of what we're looking at with the contract, because it's like, okay, if we're asking for this, so for example, one of those things in the contract is technology. You know, and the cameras on there, so some of those things, like, if we're asking for a bus company to provide this, are we willing to take on that additional cost? And
And
we
what
had
if
this
this-
conversation and said, nope, okay.
And what if the school that passed like a, what was it, $70 million referendum is more willing to do that than us?
I guess I would just go back to, when we were having the conversation with the different pieces of the contract. You know, all of us, not like, 3 of us haven't passed the $70 million referendum, so we're gonna advocate and say, no, we don't want to.
But okay.
No, I get what you're saying, because everybody's coming from a different perspective with the budgeting, but, at the end of the day, we're all looking for more cost effective and a long-term, like, financial stability.
thanks for putting up with us, Lindsay. Should share that, sorry, you didn't hear it.
Anybody object to approving the NECC contract for 24-29? Okay. Approved. Still up, approval of financials.
All right, so, I attached in there the exact summary with tables again, and then also forecast 5. One thing that I just wanted to note is that, a lot of times when you're looking at where we land, at certain points in the year, things of when some bigger invoices are paid can make a difference where we're at certain points of the year. So for example, our Fund 27 or our Fund 50 was higher right now than it was at this point last year, but it was also because we paid invoices for our Aramark in November rather than that first week of December. So sometimes it's just a matter of when those invoices are getting paid, but you'll see that shift in the following month. The other piece that I just indicated some of the details of the salaries, just trying to forecast a little bit more about what we look at for the remainder of the year, just solely for our staff for salaries. Just noting that, you know, initial payroll is about 322,000 and we have about 17 more payroll. And then that does not include summer academy. And then it doesn't include co-curriculars and like the mentoring stipend. So different pieces with that. And then the last piece is just showing the overall expenses, but the big piece that I wanted to just kind of dive into a little bit more here is that when we're looking at in the next like month or so, forecasting and looking at the budget for next year is like, we're coming in under expenses, but we still have to look at, for example, that Fund 27 transfer, which is, don't worry, we're going to be having a meeting about it in January about Fund 27 transfer, so everybody feels comfortable with it. And just looking at where are we going to be with our fund balance. And so I worked with Baird today and really kind of dived into our model and just are able to do some forecasting with that. So we're hoping to bring that to the January COW meeting, just being able to give a little bit more in-depth information about our fund balance and where we're going to be looking to end up. As we're going into like the end of December, the beginning of January, this is typically a low cash flow period for a district, which is not abnormal just because of where the timing is for the tax payments. So right now, we really just don't spend. I mean, we really haven't spending a ton this year outside of what we really needed to. But we really just don't do any spending from now until that January 15th period, aside from payroll. So like a lot of those bigger invoices, we just kind of wait and do those that second week of January, and businesses know that it's never been an issue. But again, that's really one of the pieces that is hard for districts, because you know it would be nice if we were able to get payments from the state on a more regular basis, but we get it 4 times a year. That's when our taxes come in, and because we are a district that is predominantly funded by our tax payments, with that 80%, that's where our cash.
I did have a question about the 5 thing. I'm so eloquent. Let's try that again.
Take 2.
Yeah,
Reboot. Try turning on your mic. That might help.
Ooh,
sure.
yes, it makes you feel more.
I made it hard.
I don't even know if you can hear me. So with regards to your forecast 5 dashboard, it still confuses me.
Yes. Yeah.
So it says top 10 expenditures by function year to date. It says percent of total expenditures year to date, 92.39%. So,
Oh,
so
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I'm like, so that I want to know where we are compared to where we're supposed to be or compared to the budget.
Sure.
I don't even know what that percentage represents. Because I think what you're saying is this is where we've spent most of our money to this point. Is that correct?
Mhm.
And
But that would be across all funds. So really like predominantly we focus on Fund 10 and like our general fund and Fund 27 with special ed. But yes, that's going to include all costs from across all.
So
But the top 10 is 92% of total expenditures, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are other categories that are 7% and change.
Correct, but I guess I'm not entirely sure, so this helps us understand like what's been spent to date.
No, but I get why the 92.39 is.
Cause I was like, we can't have spent 92% of our budget already.
No, I went through exactly the same
Right.
internal dialogue. What I concluded is the 92% means these top 10 categories took 92% of our expenditures.
Which is what I concluded as well, but.
Is that accurate?
But it is confusing.
Yeah,
But we're right? We reached the right conclusion?
I feel like
Unfortunately, when I did talk to the forecast 5, there's not much manipulation I can do with the resort. It's just kind of their setting. But one of the things that in talking with another district that I'll be bringing to the January board meeting is something that is another different layout that I think you'll appreciate. That just talks about the spend, where it is, where the changes are, and then where that is for looking for us for the remainder of the year. So I can, again, kind of talk to him to see if there's another way to change that title, but when I asked even about the graphs above it, there wasn't anything.
What is this first one?
Yeah. Maybe next month you could do I would add like an index that almost says like, what each thing is indicating.
we had that last time. We can look at it. Are we like a key?
Yeah.
That like
Well-
it described everything? Yeah.
It's not on it, but.
What does it mean
Yeah,
that
it
we
was
have
separate.
-10.9%
Yeah.
projected year-end fund balance as percent of budgeted expenditures?
Why is it above the line?
So that's kind of what I want to dive into in January, to just kind of explain that more, because of like right now, with the way the budget is set, we're gonna have a deficit. And so it's showing that we're gonna have a deficit in the budget, but how much is what the question.
And then are they able to put because I think we asked about this last time, are they able to put the budgeted, the number? They can only do it as a proportion.
I could do it in Excel, and it would probably be like, I think that's one of the frustrations I had, is I feel like to make these graphs and have them show the data points, because I wasn't able to put the full dollar amount on there.
So if we're understanding the green graph, this green, whatever, it's basic, so our current budget, the DPI budget worksheet projects an ending fund balance of over $500,000, right? And this is saying what? That's not the actual fund balance? That's
We're-
not projected?
We're spending 100,000.
It's saying it's gonna be negative.
Potentially, depending on what.
No, no, but as of right now,
Yes.
it's, we don't have to show, I'm just, I wanna know what this is telling me.
Oh, wait, no,
So
our,
what is this, this is saying projected year-end fund balance.
a
As a
500,000,
percentage.
so
What does that mean?
it'd be 50,000 then, we're spending 50,000 too much.
Yes, but the other piece though is that we have to take into consideration, he's looking at it's based off of our expenses now.
Yeah,
And that not, that they would, but like, this is factoring what was budgeted, not what the expenses are right now.
right, if you're looking at it continuously, yes.
But if I read every word above the green gas tank, what it's telling me is the projected year-end fund balance as a percentage of, I mean, it really doesn't make sense, those words. Because
So it's.
is it saying that the fund balance is gonna go down in an amount that constitutes 11% of budgeted expenditures? Or is it saying that the fund balance is gonna go down by 11%? It's just impossible for me to.
That's why I'd like to have, like, when we have Baird come in, I think that would be better than just trying to look.
Cause
at
I
it.
think what it's trying to say is that the fund balance is gonna go down by an amount that constitutes 10% of the budgeted
So
expenditures.
1.7 million.
Right,
Right.
which is with a 18 million or $21 million budget is,
Oh, sorry, 2.1 million.
no, but it's all confusing. That's
Yeah.
my point. It's very confusing.
Wait. But. Okay, so if, okay, and again, I know,
You know.
I
that.
know it's not a continuous flow of money, that's not how it works. But going on, this is what it's saying is, if we budgeted 21 million. We're over budget by 2.1 million, which would then put us at a deficit. Fund balance of negative 1.5 million.
Because,
If I'm reading that right.
yeah, because even if so this is showing the budget, like the budget is overspent by a dollar amount.
then the other pieces is you have to factor in, for example, Fund 27 transfer.
Yeah.
That's potentially an additional 2 million.
Right.
So that's what we have to look at, is that going
But-
to?
I'm just making sure I'm understanding the graph, right? So that, I mean, so there would be where if, so 21 million, so 2.1 million. And then it would be negative 1.5 million, but then with the fund transfer and state aid and all that stuff, it's probably gonna go back up to,
But
yeah.
that's why I think the graph, I mean, it's great to see the visual, but I
Yeah.
think just having the conversations and looking at the historical and like, that's why that spared conversation, I think is gonna be really important. Because just.
I have a different concern though, because this is on our. I think a document like this has to be something someone can look at
Completely understand.
and understand. And so like that first green bar, it's just gibberish to me. I know it's just what they're, like the words don't sit right compared to what it's trying to show me. And of course, again, it's not to
I'd like
scale
make
the
it so that
negative.
it's more like finance 101 for people, so that in each month, if we are providing a visual that we can upload to the website, and that it would be very easily, like, easy to see. And so I was not able to get very far with
Yeah.
forecast 5 with that piece, so that's why in conversations with Baird, and they also do graph, but they're also able to, okay,
Yeah.
maybe it's not necessarily this kind of graph, but is there another way to visually be able to show people
Yeah.
this is what's budgeted, this is where we're at?
Because I get the desire to look at fund balance, but what's clear here, I don't know what the rest of the world sees, but these 4 people do not understand the green gas tank.
But I think she said I was right about it.
But it's just, we have to process through it. So I think it would be good to rethink that.
Yeah, we're rethinking
Piece.
format.
Can I just also, a point of clarification, like, if I look at expenditures by object. We're not spending as much as we had budgeted, so then how can we be projecting a deficit? Like, how are these items even?
Well, we're not seeing revenue. There's that, I mean, there's no, we weren't presented with so that's part of it, I would imagine.
And future, the fund 27 is the big hit at the end.
I guess my point is, I don't understand why we would have a deficit if it doesn't look like we're even spending as much as we're supposed to
Cause
be.
it's probably,
spending.
this is whatever information we are putting into it. It's gonna use that information and spew this back out at us. We may not be putting in all of the information for it to.
If we hit budget, we're in deficit. We passed a deficit budget.
Right.
So even if we underspend, we can still be in deficit. We have to underspend by like, whatever the
Right.
number is, 1.7 million to not be in deficit.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just want, so one thing that I'm missing from this, I'm sorry, I feel a little bit frustrated because for a lot of months, we're asking for something that just gives us a big picture. I think what's missing from your executive summary is just an intro paragraph that says, we are on target to do what we said we were gonna do, or we are not, and here's why. And that's like totally missing, so we have to put all these pieces together and figure that out, and that's really hard and frustrating. And so I feel like there could be a higher level overview. And I also wanna see revenue broken down the same way we see expenditures broken down. And sort of logistically in this executive summary, like even just the way that graphs are presented. Like there's different the data is presented like vertically in one and then horizontally in another, and percentages are presented in one chart, but not another one. So when I'm trying to compile this information that is not intuitive for me, it's hard because I'm reviewing data in chunks and then trying to review it in sort of like a different context or format here, as if it's like a story, but it's not flowing like a story for me. So I'm just having like a hard time. I think that high level, like, are we on track with our expenditures, with our revenue, with our budget, should be clear from this, and it's not clear to me.
I think what's hard about this executive summary is that there was a specific ask from Andy to look at July to November of last year and July to November of this year,
And
map
it-
out the difference. So
Yeah, but
that's-
it could have
that
been
was the,
presented, but it's still the way that it was chosen, the way it was presented, like.
I mean, versus a general financial, like monthly executive summary.
But as a board, what we've been asking for months is a general report that we can all process, and
Which
it's
is, I
like,
think, well,
but this is,
Working
none
through
of
that.
us can
Yeah,
process this,
right,
so it's
right.
just, it's like. And it's not, I know we're all trying to get there, so it's not, but I'm just like, I'm feeling like, I don't know what else to say. Again, I don't think I'm an idiot and I'm not an asshole, so I'm not asking, excuse me, I'm not asking for too much, but I'm not, I just like, I don't know how to. I wanna get this and I wanna be able to tell it to someone on the street, like, hey, we're doing okay, here's what's going on, so I'm missing that high level, so that's it.
I appreciate that feedback,
Yeah.
honestly, because it,
Yeah.
each time I'm doing one, I'm trying to take that feedback and figuring out
Yeah,
what is the best way to present that.
yeah,
Like thinking about the feedback in the last couple months, like the one that I'm bringing in January, and I showed Alex and I was like, I know it looks.
I know,
like a
you
lot,
said
but I
you'd be
feel like this is
excited, I know.
Really good information, so I'm trying to take different pieces and
Yeah.
like bring them and say, yep, nope, that works, nope, it doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna get there, and so I say like, I will get you what you want.
no, I know, maybe this isn't the best tool, like this forecast 5, that's
Well, I
what I
don't think-
thought,
I don't think it replaces the narrative, right?
yeah.
I mean, I did not do what you do by any stretch, but like when I was the treasurer of the PTO, right? The first thing I said at the beginning of my report each month was, we're solvent.
Mhm.
We have the money we need to do what we're gonna do. And then I would say, here's where we fell short. Here's where we did well in the events that happened in the last month, so I tried to build like a really accessible narrative, and I think that's what Danielle's asking for, right? Like, big picture first, like solvent.
Yeah.
Salaries on target, operations on target. Benefits, unexpected this, transportation, unexpected this. And, then down into the details. I think that helps. And in particular, I mean, the problem is your audience here doesn't sit every day in this information like you do. So we're dipping in and out, and you gotta treat us like unfocused
Well, and
elementary
also-
kids who need to be reminded, like, here's where we were. Come back to the
Yeah.
circle. Don't forget, we talked about this last time, and
And you're like the college professor and we're
Right.
the 8th grade student.
Yeah.
I mean.
yeah,
legitimate.
so
But I mean, but do you prefer it, like, I know to your point, like, the graphs are different and it's represented in a different way. Is it better in a narrative or is it
I
better?
think you have to have a little bit of both. I don't know if you need like a longer narrative, but I've seen it where it's like, here's the overview, this is a paragraph.
Okay.
And then like, I like year to date, like expenditures and break it down, expenditures or revenue, break it down. It's like, I don't need much more than that, I think. And then I mean, I think it's good to sometimes have some of these reminders about like, these are the fun, or like, I don't know, I think there are ways to do it where it's like. Yeah, it is gonna be through repetition that this gets drilled in us, but then you also have to remember, I think, I know some people might not agree, that it's also for a community member who might wanna look at this and has no idea what we're talking about, and it also might be for a new board member, or an old one that's gotten lazy. I'm just kidding.
yeah,
So, yeah.
Allison and I talked about this last week, that
You're up
there's
next, Beth.
there's as we look down the road at the possibility of referenda, like everything we post on board docs, I see as having, you have to look at it longitudinally, right? We're trying to build a narrative of confidence and competence, right? That we have to be able to show people we are all over this. Anytime any one of us gets a call, we can say, go look on board docs, on this date, this presentation that Lindsay made, and that there's the information you need, right? And to be able to articulate it ourselves. So it's really, for you, living in the mud, it's like bringing it down to,
I'm not making it consistent.
it's not easy to do,
No.
but, we just have to keep trying.
Ben, relax your arm, what did you
Oh,
have
thank
to say?
So, I think maybe it was like a month or two ago, you showed us, our Fund 10 balance, or sorry, expenditures. And it looked like we were underspending by about $1 million, and that was Fund 10, right? That wasn't okay. So then, but now it looks like we're still under like 300,000. So that rate obviously went up, so.
So that would go back to the timing of some of those invoices. So
Yeah.
for example, like we had our insurance invoice, which is a hefty chunk that normally was paid beginning of January, it was paid now instead. And then also again, like the food service invoices, transportation invoices, like a lot of the timing of those. So that's why it is sometimes hard to do a comparison of a year prior in that same period of time, because if it's, you know, 2 invoices, that could be $200,000.
Yeah,
It's paid at a different time of the month, that could drastically change what that month to date is.
even percentages might be a little misleading, just because
So
it's
that's
not
one of the
continuous.
pieces that I, like, with the one in January that I wanna do, is it has it broken down by each of the categories. So you
Yeah.
can see if we had an increased expense in that month, okay, was it in contracted services, was it in general supplies? And I think, like, I really think,
Like January.
By object.
like, stick with me till January.
We
I
did
think
say it's
that'll
gonna
give
take
you
time.
A lot more info that you're.
There's
So it's
growth.
by the object code.
Yeah.
Because you have your spreadsheet with
Yeah,
and it has the
fund,
revenues.
the fund number, the object, this other one, what's the other one?
The function.
Function code, right?
So it just breaks it down for you to be able to see the revenues, our expenses, our revenues, where were we at last year at this time, where are we projecting to be, and then the expenses. And then it breaks down, so each month you can say, okay, last year we were at this amount and we are 15% over that, and this year, in this year in this month.
Yeah.
You can see where that was, so was it landscaping cost, and it makes it a lot easier for me to be able to dig in and say, oh, that looks higher, why? Oh, we had to do a repair, or if we, you know, had a PD day or something like that, that it will give it a breakdown, and it's a lot easier to see in the individual line items of what that is.
And so is that the same story with Good Hope? Cause I see Fund 80, we're $40,000 under the expected budget.
Yeah, but we're gonna be having some work done. Yeah, there's we had some stuff that went wrong this past week, so I have a feeling we're gonna be having to get some work done.
What went wrong?
One of the doors, and then, one of the HVAC pieces, I don't know the specific name of it, Dylan just told me like this is gonna need to be replaced. soon.
An external door or an internal?
Internal. And we've had a couple classrooms that like we've been struggling to have the heat stay and we don't want cold babies. So, we're just trying to see, is he was able to fix it? Is it a long-term fix or is it done? And if it is, let's get a quote so we can find out what it would cost. And that was the reason that we levied the additional funds, because we had to do work in that building and once it's done.
I have a series of nitpicky questions. Can I, do you have more?
I was gonna ask about the one of the expenses.
The check register.
Yeah. It's for legal,
And
and it's like $8,000
Probably.
So that was part
for
of
one
the
day.
employee investigation. The employee complaint investigation.
That costs us $8,000.
For multiple interviews and.
Writing the report.
Oh, man.
Travel? I know we're in the wrong.
That's a reason.
I did Zoom you did. No, for.
Go to law school.
I mean, normally they typically wouldn't.
That lawyer
but
doesn't get that money.
No, I know.
Yep. Any other questions about that?
Not right now, no, that's
Carla?
too shocking.
Lay it on us.
Okay, so I just have to say your outfit,
Yeah.
just, I don't know how no one has mentioned it,
Should
but
have worn.
it is just brilliant. And I want to ask you a lot of questions about that, but I know that's not on the agenda, so.
To be fair, I did give out the heads up, I'm like, we're in this. Is this
I'm gonna put that in the parking lot.
Daily.
Yes, but I just want you to know that I want, on the, dashboard, and these just questions help me understand. If you look at like the blue gas tank. Actual year-to-date total expenses, you got 24%. Under that, there's this line that says projected year-to-date 30%. So. Somehow your forecasting tools are telling you we should have spent, if we were tight on budget, we would have spent 30% of the allocated amount. But okay, just want to make sure I understand that. In the expenditures by object, what's the category non-cap? I don't know what that.
Non-capital, so that, if something's over a certain dollar threshold, it becomes a capital item, I think it's like $500, so if we have to replace something that is, like plumbing or something like that, it's like $300, it wouldn't hit that capital threshold.
So that would then go under perch serve?
No, that would be a non-capital.
Oh, okay, that would be a non-cap. I see. And then cap is the, got it. And perch serve is what, like supplies and stuff?
No, that would be like contractor.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it,
It's a whole different language.
got it,
And
got it.
that.
Okay, now I'm looking at your executive summary. You said that, it says there's 17 more payrolls. I'm assuming there are 26 total. Is it every other week or is it?
24.
Okay, so it's 2 payrolls per month. 17 more to go through the end of July is what you're saying.
So the last payroll for our teachers is August 15th. And then they start the new fiscal year contract on the last payroll of August.
Oh, that's right. Teachers can spread their payments through 12 months. Yeah, so this is an example of where I had to like scratch my head.
Sure.
Payroll 17 more payrolls, 5 million, and then 10 million for leave, I had to like figure out like, oh, but I get it. Okay, 24 payrolls. And I keep asking this and I keep forgetting the answer. You say the operational referendum will drop in 24-25, meaning that we get the referendum money for the 24-25 school year, right? We're still gonna get that. Okay.
Then the next year it's.
Then
it's
we're-
go up, yes. And that's what, 1.1 per year?
And then, we did a line of credit this year, didn't we? Yeah, okay.
Not a line of credit, we did short-term borrow.
Short-term
Yeah.
borrowing,
Oh,
okay.
clarify.
But in the past years, we've done a line of credit?
No, it's always been short-term borrow.
Okay, so that's just. This should say short-term borrowing. That's what confused me. All right, making sure I got my head on straight. That's all my questions. Once I wrote some down, give me 1 second. That's it. Thank you. Now I get it. I understand everything now,
Totally, you're budget experts now.
right here.
Excited for January. Also, maybe if you get that sooner and you could share it out with us, we could ask you questions ahead of time if, give us some time to like digest it.
Ellen and I talked about, seeing if maybe we could do a special meeting that focuses specifically on our finances in between the new January.
I would attend.
Get those extra finance meetings, everybody's. Okay, is there a motion somewhere?
Oh, motion to approve the
The
financials.
check Register, not the finance, just the check register.
So
Well, it
moved.
says,
I'm sorry, wait, what did?
it says motion to approve the financial report.
Sorry, I should.
Oh,
I
on
said
the executive summary, it says approval of the check register. I think I would say, we're not I think we're just approving the check register. Any objections? There was Carly motioned and second.
Sure, second.
Okay. Any objections?
Well, if there's, like, do we know beforehand how much these investigations are gonna cost?
No. I mean, you can't know how long it's gonna take somebody to do a thorough investigation. And we can't take it back, so.
Right.
Going ahead, it could factor into a board decision about whether to utilize an
Yeah.
outside. But. That's.
See, like, are there such thing, I mean, I can't remember, did we do an internal investigate, like, with our resources and then it escalated?
To a degree.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, that's. My only thought, I'm kind of bothered by $8,000 there. It's a lot of money.
For
That's
the
the same
amount of
thing.
ads in the check register.
No, I know, that was my only comment. I do not have an objection.
Okay, no objection. So the check register is passed.
Well, I do have an objection.
Should we have a vote
Passing
then?
it.
No, I asked for objections. If there are no objections, then it's unanimous consent and we don't need a vote.
I would suggest that we possibly take a personal break.
Yes, and I was also wondering if maybe we should move up, if we move up, the Act 20 and school report card, since policy is probably gonna be a bit of a slug. So we say a
Yeah.
slush.
Is it?
Slug.
So I think
yeah.
for the benefit of staff who might not want to stay for the whole thing, we could.
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm
That's-
just saying, is it gonna be us, is it gonna?
So I
Might
would,
be, I'm just saying, if in the event
Well,
that it is.
so I'll make a motion to table item six
I have
D.
students about it. Table items,
6D until after item 7.
yeah,
Second.
okay, any
on the table.
objections?
When are we starting again?
What?
8:37? Oh, sorry.
Oh, hold on, this is first for moving
Yeah.
it. No objections?
No.
No,
Great, and is there a motion for a 5-minute? So,
Second.
any objections? No, okay, 5 minutes, we'll come back and do. We are moving to Act 20, Miss Dick.
Well, it's nice to see everyone. It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
Welcome back.
Thank you. So everyone, I shared a report on Act 20, so I was just gonna do some highlights of it.
Yep.
If that's okay with you. So the big pieces of Act 20 is it's a new literacy bill that has come out of the state of Wisconsin. It is unfunded. So I just want to make sure that we all know that as well, with this. There are some key components to it, so that was all included. There's that early literacy curriculum piece that we're not going to be instructing in MSV, so we're not going to be prompting for meaning when students are learning how to read. There's an assessment, there'll be an early screener from K4 through 3rd grade that will be developed by the state. All students will partake in that. There's also diagnostic assessments. They haven't given us any idea on any of these things quite yet, so we might find out some information. So this is kind of a little bit of a moving target, so you'll have to have continued updates on this as soon as we get more information.
Jennifer, I did have a question. And this may not be such an, like in my district, attendance can be an issue. But it says that the diagnostic reading assessment has to be within 10 days after the reading readiness screener. Are there provisions that, is it 10 calendar days? Is it 10 in session days?
This is the only information we have right now.
It's my favorite.
So
Just 10
days. I know we'll get more info as this is coming out, like they don't even know like what they are suggesting as the possible streams. So, but all we know is that they have to align with the science of reading. And what we're currently using, Fastbridge does.
Okay.
So we're sitting in a really good spot for that, and it's a quick screener, because it's like world reading fluency, or it's nonsense words. So it's a quick screener for the two things that they're looking for K-5 first grade students. Second and third is that oral reading fluency.
Is it that committee that's coming up with the screeners, or it's that like
Yeah,
appointed
the
committee?
DBI committee. Yeah.
Okay.
Caregiver notification, we currently do that already, so whenever we do interventions, there are some additional pieces to this that we will have to refine our practices with. Personal reading plans as well. We're currently doing reading plans for students in Tier 3 intervention, and then also group reading plans for our Tier 2 right now. So we're dipping the toes in for our classroom teachers and interventionists right now. And I'll talk a little more about that at the end. Required reading training for all K-3 teachers and leaders. So last year we went through a CISA 6 training on science of reading. We had our entire staff trained over at Parkway. We are currently, working on getting this to be passed through the state of Wisconsin, that they'll accept that training. Therefore, we won't have to repeat a training for all our staff. So we'll see. Right now it's in flux, so they're fighting for that
Can I ask, so
at the state level.
if you did this training on science of reading, but it's not a curriculum we use, right? Like it's not, the science of readings is a curriculum. Like it's,
No, it's it's the research behind how to teach reading.
Research, yeah.
It's a
but
term
isn't
of
there
art.
there's not an actual science of reading curriculum?
No.
It's a
Used to be
weird,
those books of phonics.
it's
that
a
gets
weird,
sent
um,
I forget what those were called. They were like used in the 80s or something.
I consider
Maybe
it like a weird
Decades off.
term of art. It just means science-based, evidence-based reading practice.
Yeah.
there's various curriculums that align with that.
Right, with the modern science of how people learn to read.
Yeah, so
just
kind of
put
at the front, just
It's like,
really
it's like.
talking about, you need to have phonemic awareness. You have to have, you have to have comprehend.
Letter sound correspondence, all that stuff.
Did you do that in like anticipation of Act 20 or like why?
Just
what?
the research that was coming out, that we wanted to make sure all our staff had a clear understanding of that, and then we had to make some shifts in our instructional practices.
Oh, okay. That was in response to that. Okay, got it.
Absolutely. Yeah, prior to this. So we're waiting on that. We're really hopeful that that will go through. And then they do have like a retraining, so if any new staff come in, we'd be a part of that online training, so we would receive that as well, because we already paid for that training last year.
How much did it cost?
Almost 10,000 for the entire staff. So, and it was 6 days in person.
Oh,
Right.
It was a large
It's
student.
Valid training.
Yep, it was a
Yeah.
solid training, and the coaches came in from CISA 6 and supported within classrooms and trained our coaches.
It was a big part of the PDF artwork.
Are most of those people who receive that training still here?
Yeah.
No, I don't,
Good
I
question.
can't remember
No,
the turnover.
very
rate,
good
question.
So,
It is.
Yeah.
Very good question.
Jenica, do you think that the fact that they're already approved for other leadership types training would promote the fact that this is likely to pass?
Yeah, and I meet with the head of CISA 6, literacy department, Diana. At least once a month and get updates and kind of see where we're at with all of this. I did get a grant. Next thing, leadership training, I did get a grant to have our leadership trained. So we're kind of looking at that. We're trying to work with Mapleville, Indian Hill, Fox Point, Bayside. And then we're also trying to loop in Mequon too. So we can kind of all work together with a leadership training through CISA 6. Because what's offered out there is all online training. And you don't get the supports and the coaching and everything within the buildings. So we're trying to collaborate on that. Promotion policy, that's supposed to come out in January, mock promotion policy, so we'll see what that looks like. I'll bring that back to all of you. But just note that a lot of these dates, when you go on the GPI website, they're kind of bumping, they keep bumping them a little further back, so this is kind of, again, a moving target. So the last part of here, I kind of talked through like what we're doing right now, so currently we do have a grant for this first part, early literacy curriculum for K-3. We did secure a grant for that as well. Doing a curriculum audit. So we'll be looking at February and March, working with our partner districts around a curriculum audit. I have a committee of teachers, coaches from both partner schools, one from every grade level at Parkway. And all the coaches there, as well as myself and the building principal, to take part in this. So we'll be reviewing the curriculum, not just for science of reading, but also cultural relevance. Because we'll be using the equity lens on that. So we're creating a rubric as to what do we want to see within the curriculum, and then also does it align with the science of reading? So, and then we'll come back with that information to the board. So that'll determine, do we need to go to a curriculum review or not?
Where are we at technically in the ELA cycle? Is that already part of the, you're
We're
just
still
following
in,
them?
Yeah,
Oh.
so we knew we had holes like in some
Yeah.
of the vocabulary and the
Okay.
phonics already, so
Okay.
we already knew that.
Okay.
Alright. Oh, and then for intervention, that intervention piece, currently we're working on that with coaches, so the coaches are kind of leading some of that work, just reviewing and, writing down all the different interventions we have, so if you need to do work on decoding, here are a bunch of interventions you can do for decoding, and then this is what you would utilize for progress monitoring with FastBridge, so we're kind of creating those documents.
You guys hear Jenica?
My two.
Okay, just checking. No, I know it's quiet in here.
Alright. This assessment piece will be interesting. We're not sure what the assessment will be. I'm assuming it's gonna be an online assessment, so we're not sure if it'll be STAR, MAP, FastBridge, whatever. So we just held with STAR this year instead of moving to FastBridge. We originally planned to move to FastBridge, but we don't know what it is yet. So as soon as that comes out, then we'll have to do training and support for staff, depending on what the new assessment will be. So again, all students K4 through 3rd grade will be taking the assessment. K4 will take it twice a year, and 1st through 3rd graders will take it 3 times a year.
So how do we assure that I know most of our kids have been using like touchscreen technology for a really long time, but how are we ensuring technology capacity for these kids who are?
Once we know what the assessment is, then we're
Yeah.
gonna have to figure that piece out. So what we can do with that.
Yeah.
And you can't opt out.
So we don't even know how long the assessments would take.
No.
Like that. Yeah.
Or, we won't know any of that for a little bit. So I'm hoping we'll learn that, prior to May, so that we can get some things in place for that, for rolling out for the beginning of the school year. Because that's stressful, teachers and new assessment, and, all
all of that. All right, and our kids.
Yeah.
You know. So teacher training again, I'm. Plus, we have that in place, but if not, that's gonna be a budgetary piece. So again, it's unfunded and we'll have to train all the teachers. K from 4 through 3rd grade. Leadership training, 24-25 school year, again, working with partner districts and MECWAN to get a consortium together to do that training. And that's it for what's in the planning process right now, so. This, I think, is gonna have to be like a, maybe like a cow.
Yeah.
type Update,
Yeah.
so to keep you on pace with everything, it's kind of changing. and
Yeah.
going on with This.
Or one thing I thought Allison does weekly updates to us, like perhaps if there's any
yeah.
to
Yeah,
include.
and
I was thinking
sometimes they
for
do.
finance and
Mhm.
for that. like,
Yeah,
that
or if
would
you
be
want
good.
something big's happening, I can
Yeah.
bring that piece back with
Yeah.
the curriculum.
Yeah,
Bring it- I
definitely.
can
that
Bring the
piece.
committee and we can talk about it,
Interesting.
see where we land.
Thanks, Jenica.
Are there any questions around this?
Hurry up.
There's some really good things, I think, you know, structurally, it'll make everything tighter. So.
Bless you. Okay, let's move on.
And there's a lot of
to-
sports out there. Yes, Cisa's doing a great job. Oh.
You're up. Still up.
Okay, next packet. Forward data. So there's a lot in there. So I'm gonna go to the highlights. So there were some really good highlights. The district increased in the percentage of students proficient in advanced in 3 out of 4 subject areas, ELA, math, and social studies. We performed higher than the state in 2 out of 4 subject areas, ELA and social studies. And those are the new social studies standards, which I thought was really cool. Significant growth in percentages of proficient and advanced students in district math. So we had some really good growth in math, and that was a big focus area that we had last year. And then there were some specific grade levels that had some really good growth as well. I'm not gonna call each one of those out. Areas for growth within the district is really right now science. So looking at, but then again, the science is tricky because it's only 4th and 8th grade students that are being assessed, and that can swing depending on the cohort. That's where things get a little sticky when you look at some of this, because I can look at the cohort, you can see the cohort data within here, how there's some swinging. If you look at on page figure 2, you can kind of see when you look at 3rd grade across, that's not the same cohort, right? You can see how there's things that flip flop, right, depending on the grade level, but then you go to the cohort data and then you might see some more consistency.
Where's the, oh, is that figure 3? Is the code?
Figure 3 is the cohorts, so it's by class, so I follow the class
Yeah.
all the way through, and then figure 2 is just looking at the straight grade level. So it's not the same students when you're looking at figure 2, and figure 3, you're looking at the same students.
Okay. So what does it tell you when you look at the same students? What's your assessment? What's your
I actually have it on I did an Excel spreadsheet.
takeaway?
Well, I could see that in certain areas, we've had some dips. And we had some new teachers in that area. Where we had some dips. So I can clearly see that.
So, yeah, I mean, if you follow the 2017 to 2018, if you look at math, 27 to 2018, 3rd graders all the way to 8th grade. 50% are proficient, 51% are proficient, gap year, 16% are proficient, 30% are proficient, and 30 what?
What are you looking at?
Oh, I did this myself.
Oh,
And then 31% are proficient in 8th grade last year. If you look at the 5th graders, sorry, the 2018 to 2019 3rd graders, that 48% are proficient. Then in fifth grade, 24% are proficient. Then in sixth grade, 21% are proficient, and then in seventh grade, 25% are proficient.
So you're following the single.
Yeah. And then, yeah, so. I don't know, I just typed it in. It, obviously, you only have a few where you can look all the way through, plus the forward test has only been around since 2015, and we had that gap year of 2020 to 2021 where it was just like, that's not very reliable data. And so so when we like, again, I don't want to be critical or anything, but when we use the terms growth and things like that, it's like, it's difficult to say if that's significant.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
I'm not
also-
criticizing your words, I'm just saying that, but
According to the this
Yeah.
assessment, that's where we're showing some growth. Internally, that's where we're showing growth as well.
Yeah.
So then I think what's a better indicator is when in January, when we do our STAR testing again, right?
Yeah.
We look at our essential standards and then we can show that report again, because that's like in real time too. And when we look at this, not last year, it was some of the condensed math problems too. It wasn't the same amount of math problems. So even year to year since COVID, it hasn't been the same. So 1 year you didn't have the TDA, the next year they change it. Guess what? They're changing it again this year. So now the structure of ELA is different. Instead of 4 sections, they're going to 3. They're not doing the TDA. So it's just a little bit of a moving target. So.
But I mean, you do see a general trend, like, and again, I've never done the third grade forward assessment. I only know forward for middle school, and that was only 2 years. And then after that was ACT Aspire and ACT, which is a little bit more stable. There was a big change in 2015, I think it was, that basically what happened with the ACT, I guess that's kind of irrelevant here, but basically you could answer fewer questions and get a higher score. But that's because they took away the bottom. I mean, I'm kind of generalizing here, but they took away the bottom questions that were, easier, and then made the more advanced questions harder, which is why you could get fewer right and get the higher score. But yeah, but with the forward exam, I know it does fluctuate, which is kind of irritating, because then it's difficult to come up with trends. However, you can see a general trend where, and you might see this across many districts, but we start with our third graders around 50, maybe a little higher proficient, and then everyone goes down to 8th grade. And that's not, I mean, that happens with MPS. I mean, right now, MPS, if you look at their proficiency, just in general, they're 8th grade in math, 6% are proficient. We have, 30, I think it's 31, actually I have it written down, 31.1% of our 8th graders are proficient in math. And that's still not a great number, so it's just, I don't know, so anyway, I don't necessarily know how to solve the problem, but I mean, I just felt like some of the stuff I said is somewhat valuable.
I had a question, Jenica, about the enrollment populations. So from 2018 to 2023, what percentage of the student enrollment do you think? Does that ever get factored in? Like how much of it has changed, or are we testing the same group of kids in 3rd grade that we tested in 8th grade?
Well, it's not exactly the same.
Right.
No, it's a moving target.
Sure.
Students come in, students come out, so the class sizes can change.
I wouldn't think
But
it's
that's-
as significant though as in
I-
some places where it's.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
guess it's like 10,
Okay.
15 students.
Yeah.
Possibly.
But we don't track that turnover data, right?
But it's,
I could get them,
It's not
The numbers.
essential. It
Not-
was just one of those things, like from
Mhm.
3rd grade, a
Yeah.
lot of kids leave at 3rd grade. Like if they're gonna leave, they leave at 3rd grade, and then the kids, so just wondering, like,
Yeah.
we're not really necessarily comparing the same apples,
no, not at
right?
all.
So,
I'm feeling really proud because I just figured out figure 3. I
I
just finally understand it. It's taken me a
Oh,
little while, but
sorry.
I think I got it.
I tried to put a narrative in.
No, it was good. It's very clear chart.
I
I'm just
really
tired.
appreciate figures 15 and 16. Cause I think that's what you're doing is you're pulling out our groups, their demographics, and then comparing them to demographics in the state and in
Yeah.
different
Yeah,
districts,
trying to.
which tells a different story than the conglomerate, but it's actually different than what I expected, so it's it's interesting. I have a wondering if like sometime in January or February, after there's this like more data and you feel like we as a district can make a better assessment, if that's like a school board workshop where we like just dig into outcome and actions and like that, like just a whole thing on it.
What,
Just wondering.
what were you thinking that was different?
What do you, I guess, before I joined the board, I was always told that like like if you disaggregate the data, you'll see that like the narrative in my head is because we're so diverse and because the tests are biased and we have more kids who don't score as well because of like institutional systemic bias, that pulls down our overall score. But when you disaggregate it, you see that our students are doing better or comparable, thank you. But actually I'm seeing that that's, so like in ELA, that's actually sort of not the case. Like our Black students are not doing as well. I mean, well, we're outscoring the state in some areas, but I'm just, some of those where we're not doing as well, that's interesting to me.
So going back to 8th grade. For Glen Hills. You can do this on Y-Stash, just so you know. 13.3% of our students that are Black in 8th grade are proficient in math.
Right, and I think
13%, yeah, and then 48.5% of our students that are white are proficient.
But in the state, 10% are Black students are proficient in ELA, if I'm reading this right.
That's all, he's just doing 8th grade.
Oh,
So I was
okay, but
thinking
it's, but
eighth
it doesn't really.
Yeah,
want
no, you can do any
like-
grade level you want.
Yeah, so there, yeah, but so like, you know, just.
I was doing 3rd.
Yeah, these breakdowns don't match the narrative that you're describing.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
still makes me wonder though, just about like culturally responsive teaching practices, if we're talking about like 191 students. And then you're looking at a district that has 30. Like it just makes me, like
this-
it makes me
this
dig,
would be
have more
very-
questions,
it would be
right?
very, this is like interesting stuff to
Mhm.
dive into, and then how are we addressing it? And you said you noticed new teachers, there's a dip in, I mean, the way that, you know, teacher retention is going, like, that seems like something we should be attacking, so that.
We talked a lot about consistency now that we've had as a leadership team, teaching staff, like this has been a really
Yeah,
a year of consistency, and we're hoping that that's gonna
yeah,
impact too.
And when you look at figure 15, the last column, if you look at gaps, you know, students who are white, students who are Black, they're very similar gaps, right?
Madison is pretty wide,
Looking at that,
if you look at Madison Public Schools.
yeah. I didn't want to go that big,
Oh, yeah,
so I just tried to keep it a little.
right,
but Madison, I mean, that's like
right.
that's bigger than NPS's gap, sorry.
But I mean,
well,
even,
NPS, but-
even our white students, when you wanna compare an ELA to our neighboring districts, they're not doing as well. I'm sure people would have narratives around that, you know, but it would be interesting to actually dig into that. I mean, for me, generally, it has me questioning curriculum. I would be curious what our,
We use the same curriculum as those districts.
okay, that's it, yeah, that's.
Well, then that
that'd be
begs a
what-
different question about whether the curriculum is well designed to serve our more diverse population.
Which is
Or
the 190.
different areas can make up for bad curriculum.
True, and this is why we will have a workshop to
Or-
discuss.
I think about socioeconomic standards too.
Hmm?
I think about socioeconomic.
Yeah,
standards,
yeah,
too.
all
How
of
does
it,
that
it's all
go
very,
with-
yeah, I think it's totally something we could talk about
And
for
that
hours.
leads to,
We don't
like
have to.
staff retention too, so when you think about, you know, the turnover, I mean, we've had a lot of
Yeah.
turnover since
Right.
COVID. We've had it's a completely new administrative team, there's a lot of new staff members in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
So when I think about that, I mean, there's that affects things. But I did put in here in the report as well, just district response, what are we doing? I think the number one thing is we're becoming a cohesive administrative team. And we're pushing forward with our SAIL work, which has really been focusing on teacher clarity and formative feedback. So right now, currently in our current 100-day plan, What we're doing is we have an adult learning framework on teacher clarity, lesson intentions. So all our staff members are videotaping themselves and have a partner that they're gonna be watching the videos with and utilizing their adult learning framework and giving each other feedback on their lessons. So we're starting to do some of that work. They also pre-assess themselves on where they thought they were, and where they wanted to grow. So that was some really good information. You all know that we're doing the IDI survey and starting those personalized plans. That's really important work around cultural competency, for all of us to do, to support the work. We're utilizing the equity commitments and lenses, so that'll be a big piece with our curriculum review process and everything that we're doing within the district. We are putting that out there. So that is being shared and we're utilizing that as an administrative team. We've done some really good work with the partner districts around priority standards. So we do have K-5 through 12th grade alignment for ELA and math now. So every partner district is committed to the same priority standards. So no matter what partner school you go to, everyone is focusing on those same priority standards. So students are ready for Nicolay. So all the grading, everything has been all changed this school year. So we're all like moving forward with that. So that's been a lot of work. We went to some PLC training. So administrators, teachers, coaches, all went to PLC training through solution trees. So we've been working on collaborative structure, setting up times within the day that teachers can meet around data and talk about students and talk about their planning. We've also done work around essential standards and data collection. So we've been doing that and having teaching cycles on this is our essential standard that we're currently working on. We're going to keep reteaching until the student, has mastered that standard. And we're really doing a nice job of progress monitoring that. We've created those district goals around essential standards. I think the most important goal is that we're all moving in the same direction. I think this is a year where you ask any staff member, they could tell you what the district goals are and they know where we're going. And that's all of us moving together, which is a really good feeling that we're all doing the work together. District professional development plan. I think you've been able to see in those board updates, the sessions that are being offered. So we're offering a wide variety of sessions to meet teachers' needs. And we do survey every time we have a professional development day and ask for feedback around that. We're getting really positive feedback around that. So if you would like to see that, we'd be happy to share that. Weekly PLT meetings. So we're focusing on data. So Parkway runs a 1-day schedule where all the grade levels are meeting around those essential standards, doing planning work and differentiated planning for their win time. Over at Glen Hills, it's more content teams that are meeting. So it's a little different versus the grade level teams. So they're meeting at different times in the morning before school starts. They have a extended time, about 45 minutes of their meeting. Universal SEL instruction. Sorry, SST teams are meeting district-wide and they're doing planning for SEL focused lessons. So over here at Glen Hills, they're doing that. Over at Parkway, it's a little different because you have Steve Tilley that's doing a lot of those lessons. Then you also have Kevin Rogers that's doing the play-based groups and some of those lessons and running the small groups. Tiered academic and social emotional interventions. So we're doing small group interventions. They did some savers, a universal screener over at Parkway, and they're starting to pull some different groups for students who need some support, small group support, interventions for SEL or social emotional needs. And then also the ELA and math interventions are taking place as well. Word study. So we found that we had some gaps after COVID in foundational skills. So we started piloting a 95% group, which is a word study program for 3rd through 5th grade. It actually goes K-5 through 5th grade, but we're starting 3rd through 5th grade. Teachers are pretty excited about it. Right now we went to Shorewood and saw it in action. I think it's last Friday. So we had a team of 14 teachers that went and watched it in a third grade class and came back pretty pumped about it. It's very explicit, it's tight, it's fast moving and really gets after, some of the pieces that.
Is it vocabulary?
If there's just vocabulary in it, there's also, some spelling, just a lot of, you know,
Is that-
working with words.
That's not is that the phonics pilot that you're doing? Or,
This is,
This is
it's
different.
word study, it's a little later. It's not, phonics is a little for the K2. It's
Yeah, but-
phonemic awareness, then word study, so there's vocabulary. It's like Latin roots, it's
that's cool.
spelling.
But is that what's the name of it? The phonics program that you're piloting and
95% group.
is that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think you're asking for the younger children, right?
Yeah, like in third grade,
Yes,
there's a
It's 95% group. We say word study because it's not just phonics. It's
Oh,
more than
okay.
Just teaching phonics.
Okay.
So what you're saying is the word study that you guys went and looked at was specifically for 3rd to 5th grade, not the early phonics.
Not the early phonics yet. So that's what we're looking at with that audit, to kind of see where we land. And staff retention, this is a big piece, when you don't have to retrain staff, right? And you have staff that are coming in with a lot of content knowledge, right? We move kids, staff is so important, in the work. Having highly trained, highly qualified staff. And an administrative team, because when you're rolling over a principal and all of that, I mean, it takes years to come back for student outcomes. Restore practice training, we've been doing that work, we started that last year at Glen Hills, but we are still continuing that work over here, and I know Parkway is starting to do some of that as well. So that's kind of the big picture. Specific things that are happening in the buildings is we are excited to start after-school tutoring for math and ELA. We have a bunch of teachers that are going to take part in this, so we'll be running intervention groups for ELA and math after school. We have that designated resource time in the morning. That's really focused on academic needs. So students were actually like pre-programmed into different resource hours at the beginning of the school year based on testing and scores from last year and teacher recommendations. We have SEL Wellness Wednesdays, so there's a focus on wellness every Wednesday.
Wait, sorry, can you go back? Can you talk about that? You're saying students were selected to be in resource periods based on
So the
testing
academic
and-
testing, report cards and teacher recommendation. So if a student may need support in ELA, they were scheduled with an ELA teacher or a coach during resource time.
Oh, so they were,
Or an
okay.
interventionist. I should say coach / interventionist, because 60+%
okay.
of the time is
I got
intervention.
you. I thought you were saying like kids were grouped into classes based on, never mind, okay.
No,
And
just.
They were not.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. You don't have to read
Just
all
during
of
that
these
time.
to us.
Okay, you
I don't
got
wanna
it.
make you read it, but if there are any highlights from these that
I
you think
think
are,
the guiding coalitions have
Yeah.
been going really well. They're meeting in both buildings. They both have a little different twist because of the needs of
Yeah.
the schools. But the teachers are leading the work. So I think that should be a spotlight at some time at a meeting.
yeah,
Talking with the guiding
Yeah.
coalitions and the work that they're doing in the schools, and really, they should be a round of applause for the lifting that they're doing. I think the work that they're doing at Glen Hills, the portrait of a learner, they're gonna be
Really
working on that again, January 26th.
Who's doing that?
Guiding
Coalition.
The guiding coalition
Oh.
with Principal Young. Yep.
Yeah,
That's some amazing work that's happening. And then the culture committee over at Parkway.
Yeah,
Again, they're doing some great things, and then that crew time that's happening over at Parkway. is-
time?
Yes,
they mix grades or teachers, right? They kind of get just like.
So once a month on a Friday, I have crew, I have a WISE crew, and it's like a couple kids from each grade level, and there's always an activity. So we do a greeting, and then we do a game, or I read a book. It's like 30 minutes.
yes,
tops,
they're
just in
building
the
a
morning.
connection with somebody else within
Yeah,
the building.
it's really cool.
And
Okay.
my crew, I popped into one of the students, he was having a rough day, and we were like, check in right now,
Yeah.
because it's a check-in,
Oh, it's
person,
another
right? So every
yeah.
time I scooped through there, doing the check-in, it was so sweet. He's like, gave me a popsicle stick, he's like, I got you a stitch, a little 5-year.
That's cute. That's a good pun.
It was fun. Your jokes, sir. So there's some really good things happening.
It would be, it would be cool to highlight some of these things through Cal. Like I'd love to learn more about restorative practices, what that looks like, guiding coalitions, so like just kind of picking things and sprinkling it throughout. Would be awesome. One thing I noticed kind of missing from these responses is like community engagement, family engagement. So just like, this is just kind of a thing I've been also thinking about is like, now we're kind of back into where like people can come into the buildings, but I don't feel like there's been great or consistent communication about what that can look like. And there's probably a lot of people hungry to volunteer and help and find ways in. And I don't know if we ever had like room leaders or room caregivers or parents, whatever, right? Like thinking about these opportunities to bring community in.
One of the,
Right now, right?
We're talking about our response to gaps. And I think that one thing that could be positive in the response would be having community members, people who look like you or represent diverse experiences, come in and like having that engagement. That's just a thought I had.
one of the things we talked about when we were working on our action steps was, I didn't say this to you guys yet, but how we could work with the equity committee to help with the community engagement piece and like
Oh, yeah.
partnerships. And
Oh, yeah.
so that was something the entire admin team
Put us on your calendar. We're ready to talk.
mentioned. So, but to strengthen that piece, yeah.
Anyone else have comments, questions? Is there anything for Jessica?
I had two thoughts.
Yeah.
One, I always think about this and I don't know if it's workable or effective, but when you're putting together after school tutoring, I wonder how much you're able to lean in on other students to support that tutoring, whether it's having upper class students supporting tutoring of kids at Parkway or lower class students here, or having high school students or folks from local colleges who are training as interventionists participate in that tutoring.
Yeah, so I do have aligned with Concordia. We tried to do that again, but some things were falling apart on that end, just getting students out here.
Yeah.
During those times. But we are working on writing a grant for some of that.
Is it ineffective to use other students here who are excelling in a particular subject
No, I don't
to
think.
tutor?
I think the hard thing is the students from Parkway, their day, but their day ends before the day ends here. So we tried busing kids over and that's a little tricky, and then trying to get staff over here and the staff is working later. So we're kind of thinking about how can we do that, possibly tutoring earlier, or maybe it starts with that
Yeah.
really for little kids and.
Cause I know, I read Hattie, which is like both snore inducing, but also interesting, but one of the things that he talks a lot about at some point was how peer-to-peer learning is so significant. And it would be nice to stay focused on that a little, putting together tutoring programs. So that's one thought I had. The second thing I was thinking about is, in all this stuff is, I really would love to hear where we are on our GT intervention. You know, are we doing evaluations? Are we assessing for kids who might need GT interventions? How are we identifying them at Parkway, at Glen Hills? Because I know it's a very small percentage of the population, but when we look at overall report cards, if you have a very venal thought here, if you have kids who are on the GT spectrum underperforming, you're losing a lot of points. Those kids are gonna bring in big numbers, and also they deserve to have the interventions that they need. So I haven't heard about that in months and months, and I would really like to get an update on where that is, you know,
So
at both Parkway.
Yeah, January is when we look at the third grade data for over at Parkway. So they'll start that process. So,
Okay.
but I can share out where we're at with that. And that is our goal for next year, is our differentiated instruction. So you'll be previewed that. That's a big piece of our goals for next year. Because that's, yes.
Since you brought up Hattie, he also says.
I didn't want to,
And
it
it's not-
just slipped
it's
out,
not-
it just slipped out, I'm
It's not just
sorry.
Hattie that says this, but there is evidence that explicit instruction is a much more powerful teaching tool than inquiry-based learning. And I've been told that our math curriculum is inquiry based. And explicit instruction is significantly more effective.
Is that
Well-
something you want on a future topic?
No, I
Well,
think.
no,
I
I'm
think
talking about the
when
school
we
report
dive
card in
in,
general.
like, when we go through, like, when we have data that we feel is, speaks to our district more than just this, right?
Yeah.
It would be interesting, like, that's a curriculum question, like I had with the ELA, so it's like, are we using the same curriculum that our neighboring districts are, where you're seeing these disproportionate? If any, or fine, you can find a district that uses explicit instruction, and that could be a comparator too, like,
Mhm.
I'm just saying that seems like that's a ripe topic and a fair question to
Yeah.
ask when
Well,
we are
again, you have to.
diving into those like numbers
So,
and what we're
I
doing.
can't remember if I read this article or if I read an article about this article, but basically, yeah. But basically, like, I forget the whole contents, but I'd have to search for this article and read it again, but I think the premise was that there was this research done on a school in Japan or something like that. But they were having a lot of trouble controlling for the after-school tutoring that was going on. So if you go into a school that, you know, people might have the resources to afford that, or that might be part of, that you might get some extra instruction somewhere, you could conceivably get away with having a bad curriculum.
I see,
Because they're compensated.
well, that's good in other words.
Now, if you asked me what the article name was, I couldn't tell you. This was years ago that I read this.
We'll take you at your word.
To address that though, and one of the other things that has come out is that when you talk about closing the gap, you have wealthy parents who are motivated to keep their kids high achieving. And so they enroll in bigger and better enrichment policies and opportunities for their kids because they always want that those percentages slide, right? So as soon as their kid dips below a certain percentage, they're in there doing all the enrichment. So closing the gap is important. But there are people who have the financial investment capacity to continue to invest in having a high.
I mean, it depends how you define proficient, because according to the forward, proficient is a bar, right? And what you're saying, okay, so on the ACT for college admissions, sure, you do have a scaled score, right? But, you know, when it comes to whether or not kids are able to read, whether it comes, you know, are you proficient in this subject area, that's a line. That's not like, so I see what you're saying.
I'm
You know,
just
where,
like-
yes, I see what you're saying, but. On the other hand, we could have a line, which I don't think the forward is a curve.
Ben, in the interest of time, could we
Is it, do you
end
know?
this?
Well, yeah, we can end it, but
Discussion
I don't
and
think
move
the
it
forward's a
to-
curve. It might
We
be,
still have a ton of policy.
We have a lot of policy to get through.
but yeah, I can be done.
Thank you. Appreciate though.
But if anybody wants to talk to me about it sometime.
Yes.
I could. I don't know that I want to,
Yeah.
but I have views on the inquiry versus explicit.
Okay, we,
Done.
thank you, Jenica.
Yeah,
Thank
you,
you.
Jenica.
That was great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenica.
Actually glad we moved you up.
I slipped
Just a
past
little
in a
bit.
way that decisions can be made about what we
I-
have to do this evening.
I appreciate it.
Oh, I am, well, that's interesting. All right. Well,
I
let's,
gave you options. I knew this was a one meeting.
I see.
So we need to. Let's talk about airing their grievances.
Wait,
Your husband.
his grievances.
Should
I
we-
can't even
should we-
remember the grievances.
So should we do a motion to approve them all and then we talk about the grievances we have with each one, or do you wanna do them 1,000 at a
Talk
time?
about it.
I like
Let's talk
Alice's.
about it.
Can I share my tables?
Yeah, my.
Sure.
So there's different tables and so I was trying, I'm hoping this is helpful. So for the 6,000s are actually easier to look at first perhaps because there's two tables.
Let's do that.
So there's one table that is all the policies that nobody had questions
I know, but I have a. few.
on. Sure, so you can like pull a couple if you want. And then the second table is the policies that I have feedback on. So I don't know if you
But
wanna
some were
wanna
missing,
start with-
some are missing from, some like 6231 is not on here or on your one with the questions.
And we
That's
took out
definitely
those
possible, so let me
4,000.
And 6235 is also not
Okay, let me
in
look.
there.
6231, so it probably was
And
one. that
you're right,
we
when
have.
we approved the first reading of policies, did we only approve? We approved 3,000, 4,000, and 6,000?
I think so,
Yeah.
but we took out those two policies
Right,
and
the
the
attendant.
1 and 3,000 and one at 4,000.
Which
So they should
one?
not be included.
32 and 44-32. Those were the
Thank
sick
you.
leave ones.
So you said 6231.
34, 32, and
44-32.
I'm sorry, I thought we were on the 6,000.
so, okay, sorry, listen, okay,
So which two are missing? 6231 and
6235, I believe, and C on either, as far as I could.
are they
So
both
budget
budgeted?
implementation fund balance.
Uh-huh.
I thought I had something that's on there. 6235's on there. I'll give you 623.
Is it on table
632.
It's on table 2.
Oh, sorry, Danny, I'm sorry. You're
No, that's
right.
okay.
Okay.
But if I missed 6231, that was in.
What is your
in the-
proposal of how we tackle these policies, Allison? What would you outline what the process would be right now?
So if we looked at table 1, I would just maybe start with table 1 and see if there's any edits or concerns on any of those, since there was a huge swath
This
of
is
them
table
that no
1?
one had. No, this is
This whole
all
list is
the table.
table 1.
Yeah.
Oh, I got you.
So those were the policies
Okay.
that
So if
were
we go
not in
into the
FAQ
documents
Got you.
last time.
on
Oh, I bet.
executive
Yes.
session,
Policy.
she has.
So you
she
said
wrote
you
it out
had
as
some, so
different.
maybe. we
Yeah,
could
and
start
I
in there.
apologize
Oh,
because
I see, I see.
Yeah. So the
have
fee
looked
is
at
table
some
1,
though.
Yeah.
of any of them,
So-
nobody contested in the first place.
Got it.
Table 2, in some cases, there were some things that had been
Questions
edited
that have been mostly.
or. So it's
Okay.
like,
Yeah,
Okay.
So
so
Um,
table
so
1.
table 1.
I move to approve the 6,000 series table 1.
Okay, this. Now you're
Sorry.
sorry, like me, it's funny. Okay, so does I have just a couple maybe questions and if I'm the only one, I'll try to go really quick.
I have none.
Okay, so, okay, great, sorry,
Yeah.
everybody.
apologize.
Okay, so let's, okay. shoot, policies. All right, 6,000. Okay,
and we're only looking at table 1, right?
Yeah, so which one
Yeah.
are you talking about?
okay, so I had just.
You guys, people should be eating the sugar.
Yeah, why isn't anyone eating all the sugar? I'm gonna eat some of your
Okay,
sugar.
oh, sorry, 615201 is a waiver of school fees or
Which one?
fines.
61.
615201, waiver of
Got
school fees
Yeah,
or
I just read
fines. I was curious why you had options to select D or E. And I was curious why you didn't.
Lindsay. Do you want to
Because
go here?
those students would be eligible to receive reduced lunch or breakfast anyway.
No, so, this is about waiving any fees or fines
Right,
that are not, right? So it's saying.
Just
Students
'cause it's the
eligible for a
fines.
waiver of fees or fines are include but are not limited to include. Students are eligible to receive reduced price lunch or breakfast, but we didn't select D or E. Which ones?
So,
6152 waiver of school fees. or
so we're
fines.
looking at when we waive school fees for families, and I think traditionally those would be the two. The
Homelessness,
3.
Reduced lunch and breakfast
Or reduced, and so she's wondering why we didn't pick D,
or
or,
E.
I mean, obviously.
Students whose families have suffered very significant losses of income due to illness or injury in the
We can just do
family.
E.
E, other good
could
and just
just be E.
reasons as determined by the superintendent.
Let's just do E.
6150.
So
I don't
was
think
the-
there's any reason that we couldn't do E.
0.01.
Yeah.
Was there a reason?
No,
thought
I
it was-
think it would have
has
to be
to be
practice. Yeah. Never.
I guess I was in thinking about like equity lens, thinking about economic status. I don't know if that,
Yeah,
like if
it's
we
just-
wanted
it's
to
totally
or something,
fair.
I just thought,
Mhm.
Yeah.
E acceptable.
okay.
Or do you want us to just add both of them? I mean, I don't think it's gonna,
Well, cause it would be
they
at,
have to bring it to us.
Let's just do E and we give you the
I would do more.
professional decision.
I would include D too. I
Well,
mean, I
'cause
don't
then you
need.
have to.
Oh,
do you have to? It says students eligible include but are not limited to the following.
so yes. it would
Yeah.
be required.
yeah,
let's
and I
just
get
do
it.
determine,
It's
yes.
pretty loose then.
Yeah.
Constitutes very significant.
Due to
Okay.
severe illness or injury.
Let's just do E.
E, okay.
So we're saying E would encompass D.
Yeah, it could.
Yeah, it would give you
Okay.
discretion.
Plus, I feel like C says the same thing that A says,
Yeah.
more or less, so.
Okay, thank you. And then, sorry, so 6152, the preface, I'm just curious
Well,
about,
one's reduced and one's.
I'm.
Is C different than A?
Are you still
One
at-
is free and one is reduced.
Got it.
That's the only difference.
Thank you.
Okay.
So should we do C then too?
If we mark E, it's all inclusive.
Okay, let's do
See,
E.
see already is picked.
Let's just do E.
But
Okay,
C is already
So I have it with A, B, C, E.
E.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
Comfortable with that.
that's fine.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Just a quick question on 6152, like, we collect late fines on library books at both schools?
Just if the librarian or library media specialist person finds that a book is lost, then we do assess the fee. It's very rare.
I paid
Okay.
a lot of fees.
I think I had two, but we would never, but that fee would never like prohibit or like, I don't know, create a barrier for a
No.
student. I think I read that and that's like, okay, the
It
family
doesn't stop
doesn't
them from
pay
being able to
it,
check
and
out
it's
books or
like,
anything like that.
okay. Thank you. All right. The next one I had was 6231, budget implementation. Okay. So in the
Is
one,
that still?
yeah, and I apologize because that one,
it's not
I
anywhere.
think is supposed to be on the other one. It was on the FAQ, because I think that's one where we talked about like the minimum.
Yeah.
Was to do the DPI form, is that the one we're talking about?
Yeah.
No,
No, I'm
Okay.
looking at
Sorry.
budget implementation, 6231.
let me look at the FAQ really quick. 'cause
You were
I
looking
feel
at
like that
budget
was-
hearing, maybe? 6230, which is on there,
So
and that's
then-
the at minimum language.
Yeah, let me take a look since I missed that one, because I feel like that we did talk about that one.
Okay.
6231.
6231 is budget
Wait.
implementation.
So it's possible that by passing what's on the table, we could end up not passing a certain policy, because not all of them are accounted for.
You could just pull it out.
Well,
Well,
how do you find it.
I think I found the two, but I'm not sure. I guess you'd have to double check.
Can we, okay, can I amend
Yeah,
my
I'd have to double
motion?
check, because you'd miss, if the missed one is
Maybe
not
just-
passed.
Can I amend my motion?
Tournament.
Okay, I move to approve all 6,000
I see what you're saying.
policies. Then we can
Well,
talk
you
about-
can't amend your own motion.
Oh,
There's
sorry,
separate.
amended.
I saw what you're saying.
You can't replace it with a new motion.
Yeah,
But you can move
but-
to amend it.
No.
Oh.
It will-
I wanna change my.
Oh, you're right.
I wanna change my motion. So just
It's
approve
fine,
all
it's fine,
6,000,
it's
so we
fine. I'm
can
not gonna
talk
vote.
about all.
Okay, all 6,000.
Okay, so
But we are talking
6231.
about table one.
Well, we can, no, I'm suggesting we just do all six, since we don't know
Just to
if
make
all
sure
of them are
we have
there. Let's just say all 6,000, and now we talk
I
about
see
table
what you're
one
saying.
and table two.
that. Oh, okay.
I see what you're saying.
It's fine. I'm sorry. I mean, but I think it's fine.
Okay, 6231. What was the?
Okay, so in the 1, 2,
Percent.
3rd paragraph, there's a box you could check and it's not checked. And it says the board minutes shall include a statement of the receipts and expenditures in the aggregate, which could be checked, and beginning and ending balances. I'm trying to understand what the checked goes to and what this policy is saying.
So if
Has to
the way it reads now, it would just stop at aggregate.
Okay, so why didn't we check that box?
What, from the feedback from Steve, is most districts haven't checked that one. In the 4 or 5 districts that we looked at in comparison.
Yeah, but for us, why not?
I mean, we can, I mean, really just adding into the financial report would be like the balance sheet. Because it's the beginning and ending balance of,
Of what, of all the funds?
I guess that's where maybe that's why it has been included, 'cause I don't know exactly what it's pertaining to for the beginning balance, because you don't have the beginning balance of expenses.
I'm looking at 6231, so the way I read this policy, that checkbox, like, it's not struck, so. I guess I just didn't understand okay, that is the option. I was wondering if aggregate was the thing you could choose.
No, the period would be at aggregate. So it'd be, you will receive a statement of the receipts and expenditures in the aggregate, and it would end right there.
So what is that right now? What does that look like? The receipts and expenditures in the aggregate, is that?
That's
have
like
you
the
given
check
us something that
register.
looks like that, so that's the check register. which includes fund balance at the end. Doesn't it?
No, it just tells you the total amount of what
Spent out.
what total spent in that fund.
Oh.
But it doesn't give you like a beginning and ending balance of a fund
Well,
balance.
the Baird forecast you're looking to like provide us, would that give us a beginning and ending balance?
I think the one that you're getting, it won't necessarily have the fund balance, but I think it'll give you a beginning and balance, yeah.
So do you have
If
hesitation
you want to
about
check
us
it, I'm not
checking the
opposed to it.
box?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I just think more information is better, but I don't want it to be like cumbersome or.
Sometimes when we meet with
Unnecessary.
Steve, he'll just say, so if you check it and then it doesn't happen, you violated your policy. Like sometimes he's
Right.
very black and white about
But
that, and
that's
he's like, you
right.
can do it if it's not in policy. But do you wanna have it? That's always his question to us, so whatever the board wants, but he always kind of leans towards keeping it a little bit less specific. But
Okay.
we can
We're gonna
change
provide
it.
that
No, it
We
was
can
just a
change it.
question. I mean, I guess if it's something we wanna ask for, we can ask for it. I was just curious why I wasn't checking for what it meant, so thank you for clarifying. 6235, fund balance.
That one's.
Oh, that's on the
chart too.
thing,
That's
sorry,
okay.
okay, that was on the thing, right, okay. So
That's
that
on the
was.
thing?
It's on table
On the
two.
FAQs, the FAQs. Okay, all right, okay. That was my last question, that was, okay, so that's fine.
So now we're gonna start going through table two. Yes, the FAQs.
Okay. Does anybody have any follow-up questions for any of these
I do.
policies? Okay. Alright.
So for 6330, I had been, and I think I had said this the last time, I had been envisioning more so like large property, not necessarily specific rooms.
Mhm.
So I'm wondering about the accidental consequences of this language for like groups if they're just using rooms, because I wasn't trying to suggest that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we need to qualify that language, like the rental fee would be consistent with comparable market rate for values above X or
Versus
only
like.
for like large property run, like, I
Yeah.
just don't want all of a sudden Girl Scouts to be having to pay a rental fee.
Or like we talked about last time, if a staff member's a birthday party, you just
Right.
charge them for the custodian.
So the leasing, that's separate from the rental agreement. to
Okay.
Make that clear. So
Okay.
the leasing is essentially like what Glendale Heights allow, like they lease Good Hope. So if somebody is leasing a physical space, but that's not the same as the rental.
Okay.
Well,
for-
this is
Okay.
where I'm confused, because this policy pertains to leasing school property, so what does this policy define?
Lease would include a lease, you would.
That's
sign-
how I. read
Okay,
it. It
so
was
then
why
you
I
read it
said
right the
less
first
than
time.
this. Okay,
But the language says rental fee.
yes, so.
Yeah,
it's-
that's, that's
so
great,
If you're leasing, you pay.
which is
it.
probably why I read it a different way, so.
I see.
You
There
said
it is.
So
at a
this does-
reasonable, we need to change it so it doesn't say rental fee. Right?
No,
That-
because it's defined
But I
in the
mean,
Friends
if you're
first
paying that lease,
sentence.
you are paying rent.
You're authorized to lease at a reasonable rental fee.
But it also defines it as leased school sites, buildings, and equipment.
Mhm.
It's not isolated to.
Mhm.
The lease of the school site, that is like somebody inside Good Hope. There's a site, they are leasing it, they have a contract, they have a lease, a trade agreement.
Right.
The buildings, the whole building, and equipment, I imagine would be what, if somebody were, I don't even know. what equipment.
I don't think that the Girl Scouts using space would
I just
be
want, that's my.
Yeah,
point.
is
I
there a
just wanted to
policy
be
on
sure.
rental, on renting? Do we have a policy on?
using school space.
I thought there was one, but.
We do.
There used to be,
Like an official policy?
Yeah, there used to-
on the website.
yeah, an old one.
Like the old ones?
Well.
So
Like
maybe-
how a community member could rent space.
Oh, so you
or
know what,
use
it won't
space.
fall under fine, I think it will fall under a different, something we haven't gotten to yet,
Yep, that's what I think.
that's it, okay.
I feel that you're safe, that
Yeah.
Okay,
that there would not be an unintended consequence from this policy on
okay,
things
I
like this.
just wanted to
one.
be sure, because
I think the legal definition of leasing would trump.
okay.
So then
Yeah,
we're
it's
keeping the
using language.
language, this rental fee will be consistent with comparable market rate?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I think it's okay.
What else you got, Karen?
Yep, that was it for me for the 6,000.
Okay, anyone else? Yeah, I did, so my fund balance question, I was wondering if we would add business director or director of finance services to, I think it's the last line.
It looks like we're in violation of that policy too.
What do you mean? Wait, hold on, sorry, let me pull it up. Oh, you mean by being falling below 10%?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's well,
Actually,
Lindsay speak to it, I think if you put in like more context. you could show it.
too in the chart.
Cause would
But
that be
can I-
1.7 million?
Can I just ask let me just get this out. Would anybody object to adding the director of financial services to the last line? 6235, it's fund balance. I just think that the person who would notice it first would be the director of financial
So just
services.
both.
I would make it.
That's
a little bit of
And
fun.
yeah, I just use the terminology that we've been trying to use throughout the whole time.
Yeah,
Whatever.
right, whatever it is.
So you would just do an and.
Yeah,
Yeah,
or, no, if during the fiscal year it appears to the director of financial services. Or and or the superintendent.
Okay.
if someone notices something.
Yes, yeah.
See something, say something. Okay,
And it's, I mean, Ben, so basically it's just saying that we would be having a conversation with the board about it. If it's not gonna be 10%.
Well, it says the board shall ensure that it. So, I mean, then what happens if you do go below?
It says if it appears that it'll be
They
less,
bring
the superintendent will bring forward the board
recommendations.
considered recommendations that will protect the fund balance.
That's the last line.
Super technical question.
Oh, but it says, if during the fiscal year it appears to the superintendent and or. Business director that the fund balance will be less than estimated. So
Oh,
that's not
you're
even the 10% threshold.
No,
So what
that's like-
happens? So I mean, we say. Well, don't go below 10% of the expenditures, so don't go below, I guess last year would be 1.7 million, right? But we did, so then what happens?
Our fund balance
We-
wasn't less than 1.7 billion.
But no, it's saying, but we did dip below.
this line
Or-
is just saying that should our fund balance start to look like it's going to be
Well-
less than they've estimated, they need to come to
Oh,
us
sorry.
and tell us.
I'm talking about the projected, so
Yeah,
if we
that's-
fall below 2.1 million. Which we're projected to do. What happens?
That's where we would have to bring
They bring it to us.
Well, no, it says
recommendations.
if during the fiscal year it appears to the superintendent that fund balance will be less than estimated.
Yeah.
That is not the same as saying it shall not fall below 10%, that's different.
Correct.
Sure.
So if it fell between 0 and 10% or whatever, and
Oh, I see
was
what you're
still
saying.
was less than the.
Even if it's,
But
even
it
if
says
it's
it's separate.
$10 less, yeah, that's what I'm saying, so it's saying. Whereby the fund balance shall not fall below 10% of the preceding year's fund 10 expenditures.
Are you making a suggestion to change it?
No, I'm just, what happens?
He's wondering what happens if we violate this.
Because it says it shall not.
It says the board will impose constraints on any funds placed in. So like, be applicable, like we can,
Like, what's the consequence?
I mean,
like many policies, the consequence of being out of compliance is that you're out of compliance and you try to get in compliance. You know, I guess that it's an interesting question. Does DPI have oversight responsibility? Is there some legislative or regulatory body that ensures that school boards are in compliance with every single policy? Probably not. So practically, it's hortatory, right? I mean, the impact is political.
Especially because we can
Yeah.
pick whatever number we want.
how are you, how are you reading that third paragraph where it says fund balances will be reported in the categories, and in consultation with district auditors, but we didn't check that, and business manager? How does that read to
So
you?
it would
The
end at
checkboxes
district
pertain to the
auditors.
statement after the checkbox.
Thank you. Okay, fund balances will be reported in categories and in consultation with district auditors.
That would be the period.
I mean, to me, the weird statement is the board will impose constraints on any funds. in these classifications. I mean, it's such a kind of loose statement. I mean, what it's doing is it's creating the groundwork for the
Well-
superintendent to come to us and say, we're this much over, and for us to say, no, you can't spend any more out of
Right.
this fund. You
Right.
can't spend any
That's
more out
what
of
it-
this fund.
exactly.
This is empowering the board to do that, should it choose to.
Yeah.
That's how I read
Yeah,
it.
that's correct. And that's actually what the people we spoke with at WASB were saying.
Oh,
that is-
okay.
That is a check and balance, and that is something like we haven't had in place.
So it creates all around accountability. It creates accountability on us to pay attention. It creates accountability on our administrators to bring information in.
Bless you.
That's what this is about to me.
Wait, where are we seeing that sentence?
It's the third.
It's right after, so it's a little confusing looking at that because,
Our district auditors will report
Oh.
our fund balances.
so like basically this would be
Well,
That's
that-
part of the.
strike through, and then this
Mhm.
would be,
Even though it's not checked.
So it's part of the annual.
so not
report.
checking
It's
it
not like
means
the-
that the part I just structured, can you see my changes in real time?
Yeah, so
Until
after
the
the period,
period,
until the period, got it.
Can you see my changes in real time? Cause I just struck through to make it a little bit more.
But thank you, I'm sorry. I'm
Sorry.
reading it. Okay,
Cause then it picks up at the
Yeah,
next
yeah,
sentence
that's-
and that's included.
I just wanted to add the business
Yeah.
director so that we had.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Sorry, there was one more thing, purchasing.
What number?
Purchasing, was this part of this table?
Yeah,
No,
6320.
I wasn't part of the table, it was just nobody had questions, but now I do, I apologize. 6320, so.
Yeah, it was in table one. I see it. 63.
And we had decided that 3 competitive bids would be appropriate, is that correct?
Yeah, she made that
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, so it was in two different policies. So that's probably where I didn't note it.
25,000.
It does say 25.
Oh, okay. Purchases of more than 5,000. So the 25,000, is that like industry standard, or where did that number come from?
Needs to be 5,000.
I know we're trying
Yeah.
to find where you are,
5,000,
sorry.
So
But
we're,
it was-
we're on 6320 under competitive bids.
Oh, yeah,
The
cause that
second
wasn't
line.
even something that we were able to edit. That was just standard in the policy.
Oh, we don't.
Like, the only thing that we-
5,000 board had to approve and had to see the bids. So it changed, it's interesting, okay.
Are you comfortable with 25 cents? Well, I think we could.
I don't think so, not right now. Not with, we can change, you can change it all.
Well,
the
I'd
time.
have to. talk
That's
to
a good
Steve,
call out.
Cause it's not.
I think it should be 5,000,
Yeah.
especially with our
I
budget.
Well, the other thing I had with this policy is that, there's nothing in here that talks about like diversity, seeking diverse bids or seeking local, like that prioritizes our community or anything in that aspect. And so I just wondered if that's something we wanted to think about.
So would you suggest that we pull this one out and not pass it tonight?
Yeah, I guess if we don't have an answer to like the 25 people have, yes, yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you've got a couple layers there.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe under.
We've got our
competitive
first
bids, we could
policy
add
to
something
pull
about
and
diversity.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because there's something about having
Yeah.
enough.
And then
so-
I can ask Steve about the 25,000 too, so
Yeah,
thanks.
okay.
It would be, I do agree.
See, you guys are glad I had some questions, right?
So then we can have a debate later about 5,000 versus 25,000.
Yeah, well, I would just
Something in
wanna
between.
understand why that, like.
I think I know where the
standard is that-
5,000 came.
Oh, that's part of the fix that.
Well, let's move on.
Yeah,
If we're moving
okay,
on,
so I
let's
think
move
we're all
Yeah.
agreed that we're
And
gonna
then
pull that
competitive
one for some.
6320.
on. So does someone have a new motion to make?
Competitive
yet.
bid.
No, we're just, it's
Oh.
okay, let's get through the rest.
Is that it for
I think that was it,
6,000?
that was it for 6,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So we should,
So I suggest to amend the motion to pass the 6,000 series with the exception of 6320.
so it's a motion to approve the second reading of all the 6,000 series policies except 6320, right?
Do I need to accept
With
that?
the amendments,
Changes we.
with the
discussed.
amendments, the
Mhm.
changes that we've discussed.
Which were.
Which I did in real time.
Which was-
Oh, you did in real.
Yeah, I
time.
just did a miss. we were talking.
6152.01 and 6235, I think were the
Yeah.
amendments, yeah.
Do we need to vote on? Or
Nope.
do I need to accept that?
Nope, it's an amendment to an amendment. You don't have, it's not friendly. It's an amendment
that's
to an
good.
amendment. There's a motion, is there a second? Second?
Second.
So we will vote on the amendment. Oh my God, I didn't vote on, okay, listen, are there any objections to approving the amendment, the second amendment to the amended motion? No?
No.
Then we're just gonna, that's the motion. So the motion, we will take a vote on, which is to approve the 6,000s with the revisions made in real time by Allison on those two policies. And with the exception of policy 6320, which we are pulling out for further discussion. All in
Aye.
favor? Aye. Any opposed? 6,000s.
Except.
Do you want-
to do three?
Do you wanna push them? What do you want? How urgent are the threes and fours?
Were there a lot of questions on table one of the threes?
I'll just,
Let's just do,
I'm just-
I'll
we
be,
need to do them all
I'm
at
like
once. There,
sticking.
Let's at least do the table 1 3,000s. Nobody had.
That's what I was
questions on
asking if
it,
there were a
right?
lot of
So
questions. 'Cause we could do
will
that.
you, okay,
I don't,
we'll audit to make sure that we cover them all then. Cause it sounded like the 6,000s.
I think 3,000, okay, so we're on the 3,000s. Before we make a motion, just in general, does anybody have any questions or need to talk about any policies?
Well, I don't
On
know.
all the 3,000s?
Yep, I'm just curious before we go into motions.
It says like that 3,000 one we talked about for sick leave is on discussion for today.
Right,
No.
I was confused by that as
Where?
well.
No,
Cause
it's not
it
where.
is, it's listed on table 3. And it has the original language, so it talks about how it would be 12 sick days, it would be 2 personal days, it didn't get.
Oh,
spelled out.
it was in there like 4 times and I missed one of them. I'm sorry.
That
I
was my
deleted
question,
all of
it
them
was on-
except for.
I was like, I don't want to vote on that.
No, I'm sorry. I meant to take that all out. I just missed one
Sure.
because it was in there multiple times.
Just take which.
So that's,
So on
where is
table
that?
3, that's going to be.
Oh, table 3,
3,000 table 3.
yeah,
yes,
what's the number of
3,000
that one
table
again?
3, that's going to be
30.
3430 leaves of absence. Or is
Oh.
it-
Okay.
Oh, wait, no, that's a different one. Leave
Oh,
of
it
absence
says
is different
employees
than
sick leave.
attendance.
What is it?
Leave of absence
Here,
is
pull it up.
like
It's
somebody's,
30 is leaves of absence.
like somebody's coming and saying, I need
I
a
said the
2
wrong
month.
number. What did you say?
3432.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, here we go, 34, it's the last one.
Sorry.
Wait, 3432 is bereavement.
Bereavement.
Is
Yeah, bereavement.
bereavement.
It literally, it says right here, PO 3432, board discussion, employees sick leave.
Okay, hold on, let's pull it up. 3432
Where does it
on
say that
board
then?
doc.
Is it on? the
Policies
agenda?
draft.
3432
Oh,
is
it's
board
in the
discussion
drafts,
and-
but it's not in the packet for review tonight. It's in the
But it
draft
says board
policies.
discussion.
Under
You're looking at the
policies.
public
Yeah.
view because he made them all
I'm
public
looking at
so that,
3,000 first
I'm
reading.
logged in.
yeah, he made them all public so that the public could
Oh,
see
you're not
any
looking at the
policies.
agenda.
I see what you're saying. I
No,
was
no, no,
looking
no,
No, I'm on the
this.
draft policies.
Yeah, I'm looking at 3,000 first reading.
So I did not remove it from board docs. You're correct.
But it says, okay.
But it's not on here for
Yeah,
approval.
it is, well,
No, that's a different one.
table 3, no, it's PO 3432 is
That's the
employees
last
sick
one.
leave,
3432 is on table 3.
and it's.
I thought that was bereavement.
It's okay, it's
No, let
okay,
me just
so
look, 'cause I might have
employee
just put the
leaves
wrong
is
number.
Can we
3431.
please pull that,
Yeah, it should have
let's pull
been.
3432 from the 3,000.
Yeah, that's what we already said,
But then I
actually.
think I messed up with the number.
four,
What's
three.
bereavement?
Yeah, 4342 as well. No, 4432.
We're not doing the 4,000.
Okay, I got it. Table 3, Allison put the wrong number in. It is
Yeah,
not
where's
3432. It is 3431,
Sorry,
For employee leaves, yep.
and it is talking about bereavement,
I'm sorry. I put the wrong number.
so it's
It's a lot of
okay.
numbers. It's a
That's
lot.
good. Everybody should be making sure we're not approving policy. We don't mean to.
Cause you're right, Ben, that's definitely pulled. It should be
Okay,
pulled.
Totally technical. On the side of all this, I do feel that to make sure we have absolutely clear record. Karen's gonna hate me, but I think the minutes need to list the policies rather than referring out. I think the only way.
they have
we-
before. You've done
Right,
that.
you've been
You did that
listening
last
this
time.
time. So you'll be doing that again, right? So that we can at least, we can
which
just
ones
double
are-
check that and proof it and make
Mhm.
sure.
Yep.
The minutes reflect and then.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so we are currently talking about the 3,000s with the exception of policy 3432,
Sorry about
which has not been approved for a first reading, so
Right.
cannot be approved for
Right.
a second reading.
Right.
So we're talking about a second reading of the 3000s. Before there is a motion, this is what I'm wondering. Does anybody have anything they still need clarification on or have a question on in the 3000s?
So we wanted to clarify the language in the bereavement leave.
Yes.
Um,
Policy 3431, correct? Okay. We don't.
So in the handbook, it's it says that so you get the 5 days that are not counted out of your sick time or your PTO time for bereavement for immediate family. And on the handbook language, it qualifies immediate family as just about anybody you're related to. The policy qualifies is more tight, and it talks about spouse, domestic partner, parents, legal guardian, son, daughter, siblings. So
any other
I'm just wondering
bereavement
which
leave.
way. Yeah, so if it was any other family member or like a friend, you could still take time, but it would just not be those 5 extra days, like you would just have
What's
to
your
take
recommendation?
2. I don't know how often it honestly comes up, but I think I would be comfortable adding some of these other pieces, but the end part in the handbook that just says like, where is it?
For bereavement?
It says like anybody else that's significantly related to or something, like there's this really general. So I think if we add if there are different categories you feel like we should add to the policy, that would cover the handbook because the policy overrides the handbook. So just wondering if you guys are comfortable with this list or if you feel like there's somebody else to add. So right now it's spouse, domestic partner, parents, legal guardian, son, daughter, siblings. There's options for aunts, uncles, cousins.
And this is for attending service or making arrangements for the service.
Mhm.
So, I mean, by default, the aunt, the uncle, the cousin, it's either someone you're close to that's significant to you or someone you're involved in like their arrangements, so. Well, I mean, I don't know.
I don't know that that's true for everybody though.
But I guess I'm saying like if you add aunts, uncles and cousins and people are using the leave as it's intended, which is to attend a funeral.
Yeah.
Or to make arrangements for a funeral.
I think the
I think-
in-laws make sense.
Mhm.
Grandchildren make sense. I mean, those are close
Yeah.
personal family members that you have relationships with, or you basically have to support somebody through the loss of,
Mhm.
right?
And be a part of the
And
arrangement.
be part of the arrangements. I think perhaps there could be language about allowing exceptions that could be submitted to the superintendent for review. For instance, the aunt who wasn't your legal guardian, but who
But
did raise
raised
you,
you.
right?
Mhm.
Or
Who named you as her executive,
Yes.
Mhm.
whatever it is, yeah.
So I think we could add language around allowing, personal exceptions to be submitted for review.
That's a great idea.
It is a great idea.
So what's the policy?
The other thing that I had brought forward is the last sentence that in the current handbook language, it's not highlighted. It says bereavement leave may not be used. Oh, no, that's not the sentence. It's immaterial.
It's the
All
one
other
about,
bereavement leave.
There's something about all other bereavement leave, and I think really the statement is intended to be,
we read it 2 different ways.
yeah, we read it 2 different ways, because I was like, there's no additional bereavement leave. But if you have a loss, you could use you could use your sick days,
If it was just like a friend
like
or
a
something.
friend,
that
like
you
if
would
you're
have
going to
to
a friend's
use.
funeral, you could use a sick day.
So should we pull 3431 to give you a chance?
But could you,
Otherwise, if you want me to just add in-laws, grandchildren,
Right.
and superintendent can
But yes.
make exceptions.
I think being flexible is the best.
yeah, I like the idea of being flexible, so I think that if you were to walk through the equity lens and realize that all families and not everybody is blood related too. Yeah.
So are we gonna
They're
pass that one
familiar.
tonight, or are we gonna pull it out?
I would propose we pull it and let Allison
Sure.
do
Clear
and
the language.
Yeah.
get that language clean.
All right,
So we'll pull 3431.
34.
Cause I think there's probably an even better way to say what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know, you think 10 o'clock at night on a work day is?
Yeah, you think that we're all firing off at our best right now? Probably not. Okay, any other questions or concerns about the 3000s except for the 2 we've pulled?
So I'm sitting here looking, I had
when I was reading through them, and I put all my comments in the FAQs, I had concerns about 3112, which is board staff communications, but I don't know that my concerns can be answered. I know that this is typical language. So, you know, I'm just want to let that one go. 3161 was the other one where
Unrequested leaves of absence.
Yeah.
so that one,
It's a really interesting policy.
so this is fitness for duty, and I don't know. I looked at this through the equity lens, and every red flag went off in that opening line that talks about policy protecting people from, quote, contagious diseases and other circumstances that render professional staff members unable to perform their duties. But the policy is about physical and mental fitness for duty, and the idea of associating mental health with infectious disease is profoundly stigmatizing. I read that whole policy and I walked away thinking, that is really weird.
What numbers?
I was wondering when I was reading, and I don't know if this helps, but I was wondering if we just, that first sentence was just to protect students and employees from the effects or the circumstances that render professional staff members unable to perform their duties.
Just take out effects of contagious.
Effects of contagious disease, would it be as simple as that?
That was my wondering, because basically you're just saying if they can't perform their duties. Like why, I don't think that infectious disease, contagious
So is it the
disease thing
first
is weird.
sentence? or
I'm wondering if
second
that was, is that a
sentence
COVID ad, you think?
I think
like
it's
at some point?
tuberculosis.
I think it was
I actually
TB
called-
related.
It's TB related.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
called the health department today,
Okay.
but at the end of the day, and I was like, can you tell me like what? And they were like, well, no, it's a holiday and people left. I'm like, I know, I should have told you, like.
I know a lot of it arises out of the TB, but you understand what I'm saying. You talk
I
about
do.
contagious disease and then you're talking about mental
Yeah.
fitness as though that's somehow going to
Yeah.
render unsafe circumstances for staff and students is really, really stigmatizing and lies at, and we were just talking about this the other day with PTO, there's this idea that teachers are struggling with resilience and all that. The idea that that's somehow associated with contagious disease is
Yeah.
actually pretty profoundly offensive to me.
I think it's just really poorly written.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, the idea, as Allison was speaking to it, is if you are not able to fulfill your duties or it's unsafe for you to fulfill your duties, you pose a threat to other people, for whatever reason.
Could we just strike the first sentence?
The whole first sentence.
We don't need to state the policy of the
doing it.
board to protect, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we could just say it is the policy of the board to protect students and employees, period. The board authorizes the superintendent to place a professional member on unrequested leave of absence.
I would prefer just to strike the sentence.
Okay.
Cause I mean, yeah, also mental inability to perform is somehow, like, it doesn't necessarily have to be dangerous to a student.
Right, it could be.
Or an other employees that you're
Yeah,
having,
true.
right?
Right.
So I think the protection is like,
So could we just
Strike
strike
the
that
first
first sentence? I
sentence.
think that would.
okay with it.
Okay. Thank you.
No objections, right?
I mean, we should probably ask Neola first, right?
I think that one, I'll ask them, but I feel like that's, cause it's just saying, here's why.
Well, should we
You know
pull
what I
it up
mean?
and ask him?
I don't know, I think it's
I
fine.
think too.
I don't think it changes. It's almost like a preamble, doesn't really change.
It doesn't
Well, I think
change
it sets the tone for like. Why you might do it.
Yeah, but we
So-
don't like the why.
So I
Yeah,
understand.
We don't like the why.
We
Oh,
can,
like
you know what, I can ask him, but we could still approve it, and if he says for some reason that has to be in there, we can put it back.
Yeah, I mean, again,
'Cause I
like,
don't think there's.
I
gonna
don't-
be-
I don't know.
Let's pull this one out. We can vote on this.
Yeah,
one
yeah, if we
separately.
can pull it out, that'd be better, so we can.
No, I
ask
mean,
them.
like,
don't,
I would like to vote on it.
Yeah.
well, just, again, I don't,
We could do,
how
it-
policies are written. And I guess I don't know legally what the implications are, but it is saying in the, in that first sentence. That, are certain things that could happen that would cause you to be unable to, maintain a safe classroom or, things like that versus, and again, maybe I
This
don't
doesn't
know.
refer to safe classrooms.
But I
This
see
is
that
about
next-
ability to perform duties.
Yeah, well,
In the
one of the
second
duties of a
sentence, I see
teacher is
it
to have a
too.
safe classroom, right? So,
But this doesn't refer to safe classrooms.
but it's the overall duties.
So if you look at the second sentence, Brent, it also says that inability to perform assigned duties in, in the conformance with law. I feel like it's
Yeah, maybe.
restated.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's redundant or not, so maybe we should ask Neola first.
Okay, we can pull.
And just.
We can keep it moving.
I mean, I
If
think-
we
No,
could do the reverse,
literally-
we
I
could
literally don't
approve
know if
it,
it's redundant
and
or
if he
not,
says there's something wrong with it, we.
The guys,
That's
that's
right.
So we're pulling 3431 and 3161.
I don't think he's gonna say that
Yeah.
there's anything.
I mean, just. the
It's
ones
fine,
that-
but we can bring it
We're
back.
pulling other ones too, so let's just.
3431, 3161 are pulled. That's it for my major concerns.
Okay.
Nothing else.
So we have 3 full.
Yep.
Two, right?
No.
Well,
3432.
16,000.
3432.
So leave
The
the,
one that wasn't supposed to be in the first place.
yeah.
Oh,
34,
yeah.
I guess,
31.
right,
Yeah.
right, it's not even on the table.
Yeah, it wasn't
so we don't
counted.
know.
Oh, right. So we're pulling 3431
And
3161.
Correct.
And 3432 is still sitting and waiting for our first reading.
Exactly, okay. Okay, so. There's no motions yet, so now we can make a good motion.
So
That was just us discussing what our motion should be.
I will make
Our
a
motion should be.
motion to approve a second reading of the 3000 series policies as revised in our discussion, except for 3431 and 3160. Is that right? That's what I'm gonna get it.
Right. Okay.
Second.
Alright. All in favor, voice vote? Aye. Any objections? Any, oh, sorry, no. Okay, 3,000 are passed. I would love to entertain a motion to postpone the 4,000
Second.
to
Aye.
another time and place.
Yeah, which is actually fine, totally fine, because what I was gonna propose is that we leave them separate, and so then I just gave you a list of the ones
The
that are
ones that are
different.
different.
So we can just
Okay,
talk about that later.
all right, so nobody is opposed. Whoa,
I move to adjourn.
that's not actually, yeah, bad.
Well, no, I remember the rule. We can say it whenever we want, right? And if
You can
only-
say it at the top of the agenda, I don't think so.
No, I think you can, and then if someone seconds it, then you're adjourned, but I don't.
No, you have to have a vote still, don't you?
No, it's only a motion and
Give
a
me
second.
2 minutes.
Sorry.
Are there any future agenda topics you wanna talk about? No?
No.
Is there anything you'd like to reflect on?
I had something on my mind, but I keep it and I can't.
For a future
You
agenda?
did a great job tonight. We
Yeah.
got a lot done.
I can just let me.
That's
I
my
do have some
debrief.
feedback, actually.
There we go.
I would like the next, as we're moving forward with planning our board meetings, I think that when we have guest speakers, they should be prioritized early in the meeting, so that we're not doing what we had to do tonight, which was very responsive and appropriate, but they should be at the beginning anyway.
And I apologize because
That's just what it is.
when I look at the agenda though, I didn't anticipate consent agenda conversation. So in my
Yeah,
mind, they were first.
Yeah, but public comments could also, I mean, they could go in front of public comments even.
That's up
Then
to you
anybody
guys.
here to speak gets to see our highlight.
That's up to you guys. I know
Right?
you moved
We
public
know who
comments to the
created that
top,
problem
you
today.
know, for a reason too
Yeah.
initially, but
Well, but I mean, we had several presenters that we ended up moving forward for very good reasons, and
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a respectful approach. And
That's
so I would
great
just-
feedback. See why these work? I thank
Yeah.
you. First real feedback in a deeply longer. Just kidding. Okay, great.
Well done.
I appreciate everybody.
and let me know if you
Thanks for
remember what
staying.
you were thinking.
Yeah.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Happy holidays.
And also God bless you to the staff.
Yes,
It's a long night.
thank you.
Oh, that was something.